Chapter 621, Fighting He Lu Lan. In the true inheritance secluded domain, all of the true inheritances had giant sun's will in them. Otherwise, how could all these fated individuals succeed in taking these inheritances, especially those immortal Gu? It was just like charging through rounds in 88 True Yang building. In every one of the rounds that had Gu worms as rewards, these Gu worms were all refined by giant sun's will in advance. When these Gu masters succeed and obtain the Gu worms, they are able to refine these Gu worms instantly and keep them in their aperture because giant sun's will was purposely letting them have the Gu. Because of this reason, as long as a Gu master is willing to give his Gu worm away to someone else, they can always create a phenomenon of instant refinement. Earlier, when giant sun's will was slumbering, the refinement of wild Gu worms was extremely slow. When Fang Yuan first ventured into True Yang building, he made use of this loophole. Every true inheritance was governed by giant sun's will. The reason why the Luck Path Supreme True Inheritance did not fly towards Ma Hongyun earlier was due to this. The origin of this chapter's debut can be traced to N0V3LB1N. But now the true inheritance flew into Ma Hongyun's arms and made him its master. This was not giant sun's will's intention. What giant sun's will wanted was to control Ma Hongyun. Why would he allow him to grow stronger and become more uncontrollable? Thus, the truth was revealed. Within the Luck Path Supreme True Inheritance, there was no giant sun's will. Giant sun's will retreated on his own. This allowed the Supreme True Inheritance to act on its own. Thereafter, the newly created Wild Gu will went towards Ma Hongyun. This created another question. Why would giant sun's will retreat for no reason? Fang Yuan thought about the second time he struck and was about to kill Ma Hongyun, but out of nowhere giant sun's will appeared. At this point, it was no longer a mystery. Fang Yuan used the third method, temporarily expelling giant sun's will out of True Yang building. Afterwards, he entered True Yang building and successfully convinced Tai Bai Yunsheng to revive Dang Hun Mountain. After that he came back, attempting to control Imperial Court Blessed Land. During the second attempt when he tried to kill Ma Hongyun, he was obstructed by a sudden burst of giant sun's will. At that point, Fang Yuan was very confused. But now, he understood. This mysterious giant sun's will was pulled out of those true inheritances. Giant sun's will was anxious at that time. In order to salvage the situation, he took this step. He almost succeeded by doing this, but unfortunately, Fang Yuan was too resolute. He directly faced off against him. Eventually, this forcefully extracted giant sun's will was left with a final small portion that controlled this round. This means, the Luck Path Supreme True Inheritance was able to save Ma Hongyun because of me. If I did not expel giant sun's will out of the tower, if I did not face off against giant sun's will, why would this happen now? To think that this third attempt was thwarted by myself after all. Thinking so, Fang Yuan sighed deeply as his killing intent towards Ma Hongyun vanished without a trace. The current Ma Hongyun was protected by the Luck Path True Inheritance. As a mortal, it was impossible for Fang Yuan to break through this defense. Sai, I told you to save him earlier, you refused to listen. In his mind, Mo Yao calmed down and sighed in pity. Her tone carried some grievance. If you had saved them, you would gain Ma Hongyun's recognition and become protected by the Luck Path True Inheritance just like Zhao Lianyun. The current Luck Path True Inheritance is a newborn wild will. It is like a baby without any internal defenses. If you are inside the Luck Path Inheritance, you will be able to learn about the details of this true inheritance. This is an immense opportunity, but you gave it up. Helping Ma Hongyun would result in benefits. Dealing with Ma Hongyun would result in Fang Yuan's current heavy injuries. Fang Yuan snickered. He already did it. There was not a bit of regret in his heart. He quickly retreated while healing his injuries, meanwhile replying to Mo Yao, even if I cannot do anything to this Luck Path True Inheritance, do you think giant sun's will would do nothing? This luck path true inheritance is one of the three supreme true inheritances inside the true inheritance secluded domain. Why would Giant Sun's will allow it to acknowledge a new master like this? In Giant Sun's will's heart, it was not unacceptable to pass this luck path true inheritance to Ma Hongyun. But Ma Hongyun's heart was with an otherworldly demon, that was a huge taboo. Giant Sun's will was a special will. When the main body first created it, he assigned a special meaning for it to do its best to slaughter any otherworldly demon it comes into contact with. Now that Zhao Lianyun was protected by the luck path true inheritance, if Giant Sun's will wanted to kill this otherworldly demon, he would need to remove the luck path true inheritance's hindrance. Thus, the entire forest flew into a rage. Countless tree men were uprooted, encircling the luck path true inheritance. Large numbers of tree men were entangling with each other, all of their roots and vines were coiling around each other to form huge tree men, each were at least 300 meters tall. Their aura was shocking to Fang Yuan. Giant Sun's will put in all its effort in order to kill Zhao Lianyun. Fang Yuan managed to retreat successfully. Exterminating the otherworldly demon was Giant Sun's will's most important mission. With the appearance of the luck path true inheritance, his attention was drawn over. Fang Yuan was a threat that ranked much lower than them. Giant Sun's will also knew that he could do nothing to Fang Yuan now. Weighing the two sides, and because Giant Sun's will had limited strength, he decided to focus solely on dealing with the luck path true inheritance. Very soon, Fang Yuan got close to the place Tai Bai Yunsheng and He Lu Lan were fighting at. Tai Bai Yunsheng was suppressed, but He Lu Lan had no ability to claim victory either. Tai Bai Yunsheng was a healing Gu master and a flying master. The former allowed him to specialize in drawn-out battles, while the latter allowed him to escape like a slippery eel. He was hard to pin down. The two's battle had turned into a stalemate. The two fought from the sky to the ground. Their attacks were fierce and the battle brought disaster to the nearby trees, causing the surroundings to be full of fallen trees and debris. "Senior brother Tai Bai, let me help you," Fang Yuan shouted. Senior brother, these two words triggered He Lu Lan as he immediately thought of Central Continent. That was because in the 5 regions, the other 4 regions were overwhelmingly family-based inheritances. Only Central Continent was dominated by a sect-based system. He Lu Lan's eyes were staring wide, as he screamed like a bear, "You are a scoundrel that had planned for a long time indeed. You two sect brothers have hidden yourselves deeply. Right now, since you are seeking your own death, I will grant you your wish." Saying this, he aimed at Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng and sent 4 punches at them. The fist chi burst out, transforming into a human strength phantom in midair, having He Lu Lan's appearance. The 4 fist shadows split up, one of them charged towards Tai Bai Yunsheng, while the other 3 went towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was immortal, Tai Bai Yunsheng was a Gu immortal. Targeting the weakest link was a common strategy. 3 human strength phantoms attacked Fang Yuan, and the last one was to prevent Tai Bai Yunsheng from reinforcing him. "Quickly retreat." Tai Bai Yunsheng was shocked. He gave a quick warning. He was very familiar with this strength path killer move's power. He had obtained a lot of defensive Gu worms in Hu Immortal Blessed Land thanks to Fang Yuan's gift. But after battling for so long, Tai Bai Yunsheng's defensive Gu worms were mostly dead. He even suffered heavy injuries several times. It showed the power of He Lu Lan's strength path killer move. 3 human strength phantoms flew over with an imposing aura, whipping up a fierce wind. What a strong killer move. Even Mo Yao's will in his mind praised upon seeing this. Be careful, He Lu Lan's strength path killer move definitely surpasses your 4-arm Earth King killer move. Fang Yuan snickered. He showed no fear but instead, oozed with battle intent, ready to fight. "Of course I won't use 4-arm Earth King, because I have an even stronger strength path killer move." Saying this, he paused for a while, before shouting, "Come, 6-arm Heavenly Zombie King." Bam! A formless aura burst out. The horrifying pressure flooded the surrounding area. Intense pain could be felt, like surging waves, they attacked his heart. Fang Yuan, however, felt immeasurable pleasure, his body expanded rapidly, his skin lost its gloss and moisture, becoming dark and hard. His defense rose rapidly. In just a moment, he transformed into a 6-meter-tall giant. On his back, 6 huge monstrous arms grew out, the fingers were thick and scary, each having their own distinctive appearance. It made people feel fear upon seeing them. 3 human strength phantoms arrived before Fang Yuan. Good timing. Fang Yuan muttered, facing them head-on with no fear. As fists and legs clashed, they fought directly. Bam bam bam. Thunderous explosions occurred endlessly. Be it Fang Yuan, or He Lu Lan's 3 human strength phantoms, they had great power and each of their blows tore through the air. Tai Bai Yunsheng had a worried expression, but after watching for a few breaths' time, his eyes expanded. Fang Yuan was a mere mortal, but he could face off against 3 human strength phantoms at once. The two were evenly matched. But the 3 human strength phantoms had sentience. After failing to take him down, they started cooperating, pincer attacking Fang Yuan from his front, upper left corner, and lower right corner. Be careful. Tai Bai Yunsheng shouted to warn him, he had previously suffered greatly due to this. Fang Yuan laughed heartily, displaying his grand demeanor. He had previously activated his killer move, growing 6 monstrous arms. With his own 2 arms, he had 8 arms. The 8 arms moved in a circular motion, the punches were executed like a fierce rain, it defended him tightly. He managed to completely block the 3 human strength phantoms attacking from all directions without a single weak point. He actually blocked it, this killer move. He Lu Lan's heart jumped, his expression turned grim. Sigh, half an immortal's battle strength, this guy is a monster. Tai Bai Yunsheng saw this and sighed. He was surprised, and yet not surprised. Thinking of his master, everything could be explained. Thus, Tai Bai Yunsheng's heart was at ease, he could concentrate on dealing with the human strength phantom fighting against him. He waved his sleeve, and countless lights flew out from it. Chainsaw wind blade, flame sword flash, azure blue water python, golden silk net. Up to 100 goo worms were activated at once, they gave off a dazzling rainbow light, resembling fireworks. The human strength phantom was covered by the smoke, its speed became slower, thus it immediately changed directions and shot out like lightning. But Tai Bai Yunsheng's attacks followed after it, it was unceasing. A fireworks-like display of attacks were unleashed endlessly. The human strength phantom had the ability to think, it knew how to fly in an arc, attempting to get close to Tai Bai Yunsheng. But Tai Bai Yunsheng also retreated at the same time, while his attacks showed no signs of slowing down. He was a Gu immortal with near-limitless primeval essence. If not for the fact that he had just become a Gu immortal and had not made any accumulations, resulting in a low quantity of Gu worms, he would have hundreds and thousands of Gu worms. Once used together, they would create a terrifying attack. Human strength phantom could block most of the attacks, but under the flurry of attacks, it continued to be weakened, and the phantom was turning lighter and more transparent. But He Lu Lan's motive had been achieved. Tai Bai Yunsheng did not have a strong attacking method, he could only weaken the human strength phantom slowly. He was old and wise, but because he was vigilant and had never charged ahead courageous, it was difficult for him to be an effective reinforcement for Fang Yuan. This was because of his nature, otherwise, back then, he would not have chosen the, as before, time path inheritance from the 3 immortal inheritances. However, even though He Lu Lan achieved his goals in this battle, he was unable to be happy. That was because he realized, Fang Yuan did not need reinforcements. Over there, Fang Yuan was fighting 3 human strength phantoms at once, both sides used attacks to counter attacks. The six-armed Heavenly Zombie King's defense was truly astounding. Ha ha ha. Fang Yuan got more ferocious as he fought, his punches and kicks were lively and their speed was increasing. In the end, his fist shadows turned into a black afterimage from his sheer speed. The three human strength phantoms were expended greatly in the battle. Bam, bam, bam. 3 explosions occurred, the 3 human strength phantoms could not sustain themselves anymore and were smashed to bits, turning into fist chi and vanishing. He Lulan's pupils shrunk, but the battle intent in his heart surged like raging tides. Interesting, this killer move is very powerful, it is almost on par with my killer move. But most importantly, he has such rich battle experience, his physical combat skills can be said to be at a master's level. If it were others, they might not be able to unleash the power of this killer move to such an extent. He Lulan licked his lips, his eyes were shining with ruthlessness and excitement. The earlier attack was not his full strength, he was only probing. The battle with Tai Bai Yun Sheng was very annoying, because Tai Bai Yun Sheng was escaping most of the time, while He Lulan could not catch up to him, thus he could not use any of his strength. Now that this Fang Yuan who was a tough opponent appeared, his battle intent naturally surged. After destroying 3 human strength phantoms, Fang Yuan did not attack rashly, but instead floated in the same spot. The two were about 1,000 steps away, and their vicious gazes were colliding. Stop fighting, come over here and help. At this time, He Lulan heard Giant Sun's Will's instructions. But, old ancestor. He Lulan hesitated, his battle intent was wavering. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's status in his heart was still very high. This was not about personality, but because he had been influenced to feel the pride of his bloodline since he was young. This was a significant element in He Lulan's self-worth. Forget about them. Killing the otherworldly demon and taking back the luck path true inheritance is most important. Giant Sons will replied quickly, this is the only record of this luck path true inheritance that I left behind in the entire world. Even in longevity heaven, I did not leave behind any details regarding it. I am about to open the entrance to the true inheritance secluded domain, you will go and help push this luck path true inheritance into the secluded domain. This round was already controlled by Giant Sun's will, the tree men filled the area like a sea. However, even though Giant Sun's will had the ability to break apart the luck path true inheritance by force, he could not do so. Firstly, it took too much time, that could lead to unexpected consequences. Secondly, breaking apart the luck path true inheritance was the same as destroying the supreme true inheritance. Chapter 622, Grasping the Biggest Flaw. The situation in 88 True Yang Building twisted and turned with no end in sight. Once the invincible being dominating the entire world, the ruler of an era, the rank 9 immortal venerable Giant Sun, the terrifying will that he had specially left behind to take charge of 88 True Yang Building. The winner of the last Imperial Court contest, the current tribe leader of a super force, He tribe, possessing the great strength true martial physique of the 10 extreme physiques, He Lulan. Standing tall above the center of northern plains as countless years of change were experienced, and yet imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years, the land spirit Frost Jade Peacock. A living legend, helping the injured for almost all his life, his benevolence and his name renowned far and wide, owning a Gu immortal inheritance, advancing to a rank 6 Gu immortal, possessing 2 mysterious immortal Gu, Tai Bai Yun Sheng. As well as the owner of Spring-Autumn Cicada, ranked 7th amongst the top 10 mystical Gu, the owner of Hu Immortal Blessed Land, a mortal who has possession of multiple immortal Gu, a reborn 500-year-old demon, Gu Fang Yuan. Favored by rank 8 fortune rivaling Heaven Gu, a Gu immortal in Fang Yuan's previous life who had successively inherited Giant Sun's inheritance and an opportunity left behind by thieving Heaven Demon Venerable, becoming a great hero of Northern Plains who resisted the invasion of Central Continent, Ma Hongyun. Viewed as an otherworldly demon by Giant Sun's will, Ma Hongyun's wife in Fong Yuan's previous life, who became a wisdom path Gu immortal and provided innumerable amount of assistance to her husband, the legendary woman Zhao Lianyun. And also the former rank 7 Gu immortal, a refinement path grandmaster, the 36th generation fairy of Spirit Affinity House, Mo Yao, who had schemed against 88 True Yang building, the mysterious will she left behind following her death. All these existences had their own thoughts with their respective goals. And on this platform of the collapsing imperial court blessed land, they collided and contended with each other. They had their own advantages, abilities, and also had their respective weaknesses and flaws. These were all individuals overflowing with talents, they were elites or heroes of their generations. They were either proficient in scheming and strategizing, being master tacticians, or had immense strength or absurd luck. The intense stimulation of life and death, the enticement of enormous benefits, caused these existences to perform to their full strength, using all their abilities and trump cards, perhaps betting it all and risking everything in a single moment, or strategizing to control the situation. Thus, the state of affairs became clear from time to time, while turning indistinct at the next moment. They had contended till now, but the situation was still chaotic. Only Frost Jade Peacock was pulled out of the game, while the others could tilt the whole set of circumstances with their every move and were not existences that could be underestimated in their influence to the final outcome. Now, the main part of Giant Sun's will had been forced out of 88 True Yang building for the moment by Fong Yuan's trump card, suffering the intense assaults of the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity. Giant Sun's will was the most powerful existence among those present. On one hand, his main portion tried to return to 88 True Yang building, and on the other, he took the risk of drawing out the sub-wills from true inheritances to seize back the control of the round, and then wholeheartedly tried to eliminate the otherworldly demon Zhao Lianyun. Ma Hongyun and Zhao Lianyun had become the masters of imperial court blessed land by some twist of fate. They were also being protected by the luck path true inheritance and were safe for the moment. Fong Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng had made a temporary alliance, engaging in a round of probing confrontation with He Lulan. He Lulan's battle intent soared violently and he was just about to fight Fong Yuan head-on, when Giant Sun's will asked him to leave and deal with Ma Hongyun to take back the luck path true inheritance. He Lulan hesitated, but chose to listen to Giant Sun's will in the end. I will let you guys off for the moment. He glared at Fong Yuan before turning around and leaving quickly. Fong Yuan looked on as He Lulan left, floating in the sky without giving chase. Huff huff. Tai Bai Yunsheng let out a breath of turbid air, flying towards Fong Yuan. He might be a Gu immortal, but he only specialized in healing and lacked large numbers of mortal Gu. His battle strength compared to ordinary Gu immortals still had a great discrepancy. Through a prolonged battle, he had slowly worn down that human strength phantom to death. He Lulan is going to deal with Ma Hongyun to retrieve the luck path true inheritance. Should we intervene in this? Mo Yao's will immediately suggested. This luck path true inheritance was a supreme hidden treasure left behind by Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. Back then, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable used it as part of his journey in becoming the ruler of an era, invincible within the world. This luck path true inheritance held extremely large temptation to any Gu master. Fong Yuan's gaze slightly flickered, but he did not move, instead turning his sight to look at his left. Not far from him, a whirlwind was forming. Careful, He Lulan's fist chi can still condense back even after being destroyed. Tai Bai Yunsheng warned. Fong Yuan snorted, and with one step, appeared before the hurricane, punching it. Boom! A muffled sound rang out and the fist chi was scattered again. The first aura was mostly dissipated, but the remaining fist chi still persisted in condensing back. But this quantity was rather small and was not able to condense into form. This strength path killer move. Fang Yuan's expression was heavy. Strength path phantoms were the long-range attacking method of strength path, however this was the first time Fang Yuan had seen human strength phantoms possessing such spirituality. This seemed to be an innovation of which no records existed in all the Gu master history Fang Yuan knew of. It could be even called as He Lu Lan's strength path phantom. More importantly, this He Lu Lan's strength path phantom could condense back even after being destroyed. This gave the feeling of a never-ending source of harassment. He Lu Lan has certainly not used his full strength. If he can attack with 20 human strength phantoms at the same time, and the remaining fist chi can condense again, that power would be terrifying. If he can send out 30 human strength phantoms, then this strength path killer move can absolutely contend with your 6-arm heavenly zombie king. Mo Yao's will evaluate it with a grave tone. What killer move is this? Do you have any impressions of it? Fang Yuan asked. Mo Yao's will slowly shook her head. I am not a strength path Gu immortal. This killer move also greatly involves soul path and chi path. In addition it has other pivotal mechanics. It should be a modern innovation as it is greatly different from ancient styles. I am guessing that this is an innovation of the current generation. 6-arm heavenly zombie king was researched by Fang Yuan and perfected by Mo Yao. But there were no lack of geniuses in this world. It was not just Fang Yuan alone who could innovate a strength path killer move. Of course, Fang Yuan specialized in blood path in his previous life, and had only cultivated strength path on the side. Tree men flocked one after the other, forming a majestic green wave that attempted to drown Ma Hongyun and Zhao Lianyun. However, Giant Sun's luck path true inheritance was like a giant golden egg that firmly protected the two. Giant Sun's will was concerned about the consequences of his actions. He truly wanted to kill the otherworldly demon Zhao Lianyun, but also wanted to protect this unique existence that was Giant Sun's luck path true inheritance. When he saw He Lu Lan near, he hurriedly transmitted his voice, I will open the passage to true inheritance secluded domain, help me push the luck path true inheritance into it. He Lu Lan nodded. His whole body shook as he punched out with both his fists, fist chi surged out violently. Boom boom boom. Muffled explosions rang out in the air non-stop, the fist chi condensing one after another into He Lu Lan's strength path phantoms. 10, 20, 30, 40. Fang Yuan's pupils could not help but shrink upon seeing this. Tai Bai Yunxing's expression turned pale, revealing intense fear in his eyes. 40 of He Lu Lan's strength path phantoms moved down together and surrounded the luck path true inheritance in just a moment. A dark crack slowly appeared in the air above the luck path true inheritance. The crack enlarged till it formed a large and round passage. This deep, dark passage was directly linked to true inheritance secluded domain. Strength path phantoms shouted together before actually lifting Giant Sun's true inheritance slightly. The surrounding tree men also moved their large hands to help. The python-like green vines coiled around together to assist in this. Giant Sun's true inheritance erupted with an intense and dazzling light, the tree men melted like snow, the coiling vines could not even last for 2 breaths before being destroyed completely. Strength path phantoms also continued to crumble but condensed back a short while after. He Lu Lan stood at the outer periphery. He was like an endless source of strength, striking out with large numbers of strength path phantoms one after another. Under his effort, Giant Sun's true inheritance slowly left the ground. At the same time, the round passage in the air also erupted with an intense force of suction, like a giant mouth attempting to take back Giant Sun's true inheritance into its belly. He can actually form so many strength path phantoms simultaneously. What kind of killer move is this? Tai Bai Yunsheng cried out involuntarily at this astonishing sight. Mo Yao's will also said to Fang Yuan, your strength path killer move is specialized for close combat. He Lu Lan's killer move, however, is the exact opposite of yours, specializing in long-range combat. This killer move is equally matched with your 6-arm Heavenly Zombie King. But in He Lu Lan's hands, the strength it can erupt with far surpasses yours by several times. He Lu Lan was the possessor of great strength true martial physique of the 10 extreme physiques, and Fang Yuan was not. In the legends, Gu masters who had great strength true martial physique not only had immense strength, their stamina would also never run out. At the same time, their self-recovery ability was also extremely astonishing. Any strength path killer move would erupt with strength that far surpassed their usual strength under the hands of great strength true martial physique. What should we do now? Tai Bai Yunsheng stood beside Fang Yuan, fixing his gaze at the contest of strength between He Lu Lan and Giant Sun's true inheritance. He continued with a regretful tone, this is a supreme true inheritance. Giant Sun's will is taking it back to true inheritance secluded domain, unfortunately He Lu Lan is there, so we cannot get a share of the action. His tone contained the meaning of not being able to contend with He Lu Lan. This was not surprising, Tai Bai Yunsheng had a passive nature, a wise man looks after his own hide, he would not take extreme measures unless forced into a corner. Fang Yuan looked at Tai Bai Yunsheng and smiled. What to do? He asked and answered himself, of course we go to true inheritance secluded domain. Tai Bai Yunsheng was surprised, true inheritance secluded domain. Mo Yao's will shook before reacting, almost slapping her own thigh at the sudden realization, right, there is no more of Giant Sun's will remaining in true inheritance secluded domain. Those true inheritances have become masterless objects. Previously, these true inheritances contain Giant Sun's will, thus one could only obtain the qualifications for the true inheritances by using an owner token. But it was different now, Giant Sun's will had moved away all the sub-wills. Young Wild will grew soon after in the true inheritances, and they only needed to be manipulated appropriately to refine them easily. But you don't have much time, Giant Sun's main will outside the tower is going to return soon. You will only be able to choose one true inheritance in this time. Mo Yao's will reminded, Fang Yuan, you must quickly consider which inheritance you are going to choose. Tai Bai Yunsheng also realized this and asked another crucial question, this round is already controlled by Giant Sun's will, how do we enter true inheritance secluded domain? He had not even finished speaking when Fang Yuan took out fixed immortal travel immortal Gu. Tai Bai Yunsheng had held this immortal Gu for safekeeping before, thus he was not surprised, but his gaze turned serious as he looked at Fang Yuan, if I am not wrong, fixed immortal travel can only carry one person, right? You are right. Fang Yuan nodded, so open up your immortal aperture and let me in. I will send you the image of true inheritance secluded domain through thoughts transmission. Tai Bai Yunsheng suddenly realized, I almost forgot that I am a Gu immortal. The immortal aperture of rank 6 and rank 7 Gu immortals was called a Blessed Land. Imperial Court Blessed Land, Langya Blessed Land and Hu Immortal Blessed Land were immortal apertures, they had vast space and were akin to a small world. Tai Bai Yunsheng's Tai Bai Blessed Land was naturally not an exception. Fang Yuan lent fixed immortal travel to Tai Bai Yunsheng and entered his immortal aperture, then sent his thoughts that recorded the image of true inheritance secluded domain. Tai Bai Yunsheng activated fixed immortal travel, Giant Sun's will had no spare energy to stop him and could only let him go to true inheritance secluded domain one step earlier. Within the true inheritance secluded domain was a scene of chaos. The dozens of true inheritances were ruled by new wild wills and were like headless chickens, flying around chaotically. From time to time, they collided with each other, letting out sparks and causing unceasing wear and tear. Mo Yao felt great heartache at this scene, make your choice quickly. These true inheritances are destroying each other, if the situation gets worse, even if you can get an inheritance, it might have already lost its essence. Fang Yuan did not have much time left and could only pick one true inheritance. He had already made a plan for this. He said in a deep voice, "Mo Yao, I need your help. Speak quickly. Point me the location of the final supreme true inheritance." Mo Yao was stumped at Fang Yuan's words. Soon, her eyes and mouth opened wide, her mind was greatly shaken. 88 True Yang building contained 3 supreme true inheritances. Mo Yao was extremely clear about them, and she had introduced them to Fang Yuan when he had charged into True Inheritance secluded domain before. The first supreme true inheritance was rank 9 Wisdom Gu. The second supreme true inheritance was Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's Luck Path inheritance. The third supreme true inheritance was 88 True Yang building itself. That is to say, the one who obtains this true inheritance could control 88 True Yang building. Why did I not think of it? Mo Yao mumbled in a daze. Giant Suns will had transferred all the sub-wills away. Now is the best time to seize the authority over 88 True Yang building. Right. Giant Suns will had neglected this in fulfilling his desire to deal with Zhao Lianyun, thus exposing his greatest flaw, and giving us the opportunity to turn around this crisis. Fang Yuan's eyes shone with a sharp brilliance. He looked at his surroundings, the fire of ambition soaring ever so high in his heart. He acutely grasped the flaw in the enemy. Win or lose, it all depended on this move. As long as he could take 88 True Yang building for himself, he would have the territorial advantage. By that time, even if Giant Sun's main will were to be more formidable, he would only be a despondent dog locked out of the house, standing at the door and barking helplessly. Chapter 623, Refining 88 True Yang building. Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunxing moved forward in the True Inheritance secluded domain. In the dark True Inheritance secluded domain, there was no more of the order and serenity from before. Because Giant Suns will had been extracted fully, the dozens of true inheritances here were ownerless inheritances, wild wills formed in them within a short time. These true inheritances were like shooting stars of all colors, flying extremely quickly in this dark space. They weaved a beautiful huge net with their trails. Swoosh! Another true inheritance flew quickly past Fang Yuan's left side. This true inheritance was only the size of a bowl, it was giving off a silvery light and was very dazzling. It almost touched Fang Yuan's body as it flew past. The silvery light shone on Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunxing's faces. Their expressions were quite ugly, their gazes were full of anxiety and nervousness. These true inheritances were powerful and had special abilities, most of them had immortal Gu among the Gu worms in them. Be it Fang Yuan or Tai Bai Yunxing, they could not endure an attack from them. Especially now, when the true inheritances were guided by the newly birthed wills, who knew when they would display their immortal Gu abilities. This could not be predicted. Moving around this place was like walking on a tightrope above death. These true inheritances are getting faster. Have you found the target yet? Tai Bai Yunxing shouted at Fang Yuan, his voice was trembling. Soon. Fang Yuan answered. He also felt the pressure intensifying. Even though he was a flying master and had exceptional skill, the pressure now was tremendous. Bam! Just at this moment, there was a loud explosion. Oh no, quickly dodge! In Fang Yuan's mind, Mo Yao reminded. Not far away, 2 true inheritances collided. From the intense sounds produced by them, several Gu worms were destroyed on the spot. Tai Bai Yunxing had yet to feel pity at this, when his expression paled. The collision changed the 2 true inheritances' directions, one of them which was bright yellow flew towards them. During the moment of crisis, Tai Bai Yunxing quickly activated all of his defensive Gu, setting up 100 lines of defense around him and Fang Yuan. The incoming true inheritance came with a strong force, destroying all of the defensive lines without any difficulty. But during this period, Tai Bai Yunxing managed to earn some precious time for him and Fang Yuan to escape. The shrill sound almost burst their eardrums, as the meteor-like true inheritance flew away with a blazing tail. In the blink of an eye, it was more than 10,000 steps away from the two of them. My defense Gu were almost all destroyed. Tai Bai Yunxing's expression was pale. Where there is life, there is hope, we should retreat. Tai Bai Yunxing had the intention of leaving already. Fang Yuan frowned, he was very clear on Tai Bai Yunxing's nature. The older one was, the more cowardly they become. Tai Bai Yunxing lacked the enthusiasm and spirit to take risks now. It was fine to ask him to heal others, but he was not an expert at putting himself into life and death situations. Just as Fang Yuan was thinking of what to say to spur Tai Bai Yunxing's fighting spirit, Mo Yao screamed in his mind, "Quickly look, just above you guys, we found it." Fang Yuan's mind became sharp, he quickly looked up. Indeed, a supreme true inheritance was flying slowly. The speed of the light lump was not fast, it was a stark contrast to the other ordinary true inheritances. It was the size of an adult person, glowing with an orange and red light, giving off the feeling of warmth. The surrounding true inheritances, when they got close to it, took detours and changed their directions. Between Gu worms, there was absolute authority when they had a difference of 2 ranks. The authority of a supreme true inheritance was not something ordinary or unparalleled true inheritances could offend. Go! Fang Yuan was overjoyed, he shouted at Tai Bai Yunxing before flying over. Hold on! All of you hold on! Yi Lui Sang's eyes were red, he shouted loudly as he activated his Gu worms, emitting fierce flames. The flames burned, quickly spreading. The golden horn leopard group that was attacking them had good resistance to high temperature. But Yi Lui Sang's flames used the power of an immortal Gu. The golden horn leopard group quickly melted in the flames, turning into puddles of golden mud. Seeing this, the surrounding Gu masters cheered loudly. Lord Yi Lui Sang is incredible. Thankfully Lord is here, otherwise we would be dead meat. Yi Lui Sang breathed roughly, he was exasperated, helpless and angry. Damn it, what is going on? First, Tai Bai Yunxing became an immortal. Next, Imperial Court Blessed Land was facing destruction, ravaged by the once-in-10 years blizzard. Now even 88 True Yang building has come into the picture. I thought we could leave the trap, but the building's rounds suddenly triggered. If I knew this, I would not have entered the last Imperial Court contest. Yi Lui Sang was scolding in his heart. Not just him, Ming Jie, Luo Bo Jun, Gu Guolong and the other survivors were all kept in the dark, they did not know the truth. These people were all Northern Plains Gu masters who had entered Imperial Court Blessed Land. After Imperial Court Blessed Land was torn with several holes, the once-in-10 years blizzard entered and wreaked havoc, killing almost all the mortals. Large numbers of low-rank Gu masters were injured or dead. But later, Giant Sun's wills found some time, despite being busy, to save some of the blood-related descendants. Yi Lui Sang and the others were placed into the Golden Leopard round. When Fang Yuan activated the final trump card and sent Giant Sun's will out of 88 True Yang building temporarily, without Giant Sun's will controlling the round, the large Golden Horn Leopard group started attacking Yi Lui Sang and the others fiercely. Outside 88 True Yang building. The golden sand-like Giant Sun's will was covered the building like a thick layer of armor. Meanwhile, the terrifying heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity had combined into one, fusing to connect heaven and earth. It was pure white like snow, like a giant cocoon, enveloping the entire 88 True Yang building and Giant Sun's will in it. Outside the cocoon, wild winds blew, sharp blades made of ice were flying around everywhere. Inside the cocoon, lightning flashed and the snow poured like a storm. Crack! A snow-white lightning flash was formed abruptly, in the shape of a trident. The strange lightning descended from heaven, stabbing into Giant Sun's will. Snow War Tribulation Lightning. Giant Sun's will howled. This attack destroyed a large portion of Giant Sun's will. There was a huge injury appearing on the golden sand-like armor. This Snow War Tribulation Lightning had amazing strength, it was extraordinary. Even Gu immortals would be moved when they see it, because it was one of the publicly recognized top 10 catastrophes. Just this hit alone destroyed countless numbers of Giant Sun's thoughts. But Giant Sun's will was left behind by an immortal venerable, its foundation was immensely thick. The will that was like a golden sand armor quickly repaired itself. But other than the Snow War Tribulation Lightning, there were also Flying Needle Rain, Explosive Thunder Hail, Cruel Wind Scythe and others. These did not exist earlier, they were formed from Tai Bai Yun Sheng's Heavenly Tribulation Chaotic Lightning Balls and Earthly Calamity Restraining Smoke, fusing with the once in 10 years blizzard. Heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities continued to rain down carrying the intense rage of heaven and earth. Giant Sun's will resisted them desperately, his losses were great. Soon, very soon. In just several minutes, I will be able to break free of this obstacle and enter 88 True Yang building again. You actually dared to expel me from the building, and keep me outside. I will tear your tendons and bones out, I will grind you to ashes, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Giant Sun's will had already transcended anger when he thought of Fang Yuan. Inside 88 True Yang building, there was still a small portion of Giant Sun's will. Right now, he was controlling the tree men round, manipulating them in trying to push Giant Sun's inheritance back to the true inheritance secluded domain. Softly, don't be too rough, this is the only one in the world. Giant Sun's will paid close attention to He Lulan. He Lulan was extremely irritated, but he could only reduce his strength. This was the one and only record of this luck path true inheritance that Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had left behind. Once it was destroyed, it would be irrecoverable. Precisely because of this consideration, Ma Hongyun and Zhao Lianyun who were inside the luck path true inheritance were able to survive. The two of them were hugging each other closely, they had no choice but to watch the giant light ball that was the luck path true inheritance slowly pushed towards the round tunnel. Even though they were famous and powerful characters in Fang Yuan's previous life, both Gu immortals, right now, they were still too weak. One was a newly advanced rank 3 Gu master, while the other was a mortal who had not even started her cultivation journey. Tai Bai Yun Sheng and that Chang Shan Yin have gone missing. Success was at hand, as He Lulan could not control it anymore, saying. Ever since Fang Yuan vanished, he had felt a vague sense of unease. Forget about them, in just a moment my main will is going to return. By then, even if 2 or 3 more Gu immortals come, they cannot do anything. The important thing now is to get this luck path true inheritance into the true inheritance secluded domain. Most luck path Gu worms are formless and ethereal. Only that place can contain these Gu worms. Giant Sun's will's voice resounded in He Lulan's ears. He Lulan nodded, shouting lowly as he mustered his strength. At once, he unleashed 50 Strength Path Phantoms. These Strength Path Phantoms had superior wisdom, they quickly rushed towards the luck path true inheritance. Enduring the blazing light, they pushed. The luck path true inheritance was finally completely pushed into the true inheritance secluded domain by this force. The tunnel closed. Success. Giant Sun's will breathed out a deep sigh. Almost at the same time, the giant main will charged into the building. Giant Sun's will which was controlling the tree men round fused with the main will, sharing their memories together. Fang Yuan, where are you? The main will screamed loudly with deep hatred. Greetings to old ancestor. He Lulan bowed deeply, showing great joy. The main will was like a small sun, it shone brightly and was very domineering. It could be said that He Lulan had helped Giant Sun's will in many ways. Giant Sun's will was just about to praise him, but suddenly shouted in anger, you are all courting death. You dare to refine my 88 true yang building. Inside Giant Sun's secluded domain, Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Xing stretched out their palms, pressing the true inheritance light lump forcefully. Their expressions were pale and their bodies were shivering. Quickly. Just one last bit and we would succeed. In his mind, Mo Yao's will shouted anxiously. Chapter 624, Shameless and Devious Scoundrel. In true inheritance secluded domain, Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Sheng were firmly holding a supreme true inheritance from its left and right. Thanks to the guidance of Mo Yao's will along with Giant Sun's will being emptied out, Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Sheng were able to get close to the true inheritance. The most crucial point was there was no primeval energy in true inheritance secluded domain. Wild Gu worms could absorb primeval energy directly from the surrounding air for their use. Without primeval energy, most Gu worms would lose their threat. This was also one of the reasons Giant Sun's will was trying to push Giant Sun's luck path true inheritance back into true inheritance secluded domain. The supreme true inheritance had been letting out a warm orange light before, but in Fang Yuan's and Tai Bai Yun Xing's hands, it let out 3 colors. Silver-white light occupied the bulk of it, caused by the refinement from Tai Bai Yun Xing's Gu immortal will. The second color was gray from Fang Yuan. The third was black light from Mo Yao. Silver-white light was the most abundant, gray came second and black was in the least amount. 88 True Yang building was a rank 8 immortal Gu house, formed from extremely large numbers of Gu worms. Fang Yuan's group had to use all their strength to quickly refine 88 True Yang building. It could be said, whether it was Fang Yuan or Tai Bai Yun Sheng, they had both spent all their strength. Just a little left, just a little more effort. Tai Bai Yun Sheng anxiously yelled. The main portion of Giant Sun's will had returned to True Yang building, the 3 had heard its furious roar. The round light lump with the size of an adult had only a final trace of orange left on it. As long as this light was eroded, 88 True Yang building would completely change its master and the situation would greatly incline towards Fang Yuan's side. However, Giant Sun's will furiously made his move at this final moment. The will left by an immortal venerable could not be looked down upon. And this will was the original master of 88 True Yang building. Thus, in just an instant, the final trace of orange was replaced by dazzling golden light. Fang Yuan's group immediately felt gloomy at this color. This color meant that Giant Sun's will had refined the final remaining trace of the supreme true inheritance's will. Juniors, you are really audacious, you dare to go after my 88 True Yang building. I will make you pay the most terrible price in the world. From within the light lump, a roar from Giant Sun's will sounded out. Quick! There is only a meager trace of Giant Sun's will, we need to move together and destroy it, spare no energy. Fang Yuan shouted. Tai Bai Yun Xing's forehead was filled with sweat, he did not need any reminder to be aware of the utmost importance of this matter. The 2 gave a deep shout and moved together, mobilizing their wills to form a huge army of thoughts that unfolded a fierce assault towards the last trace of will. Giant Sun's will's roar stopped abruptly as he poured all his energy in defending against the assault. Its main body was enormous, but it had only refined a trace of the true inheritance and controlled the smallest portion. Even if it possessed majestic strength that far surpassed the allied thoughts army of Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Sheng, it did not have the room to display its might, and the power it could let out was an insignificant fraction compared to that of the main body. The newborn wild will that had been born just recently in the supreme true inheritance had already been thoroughly extinguished. The tranquil true inheritance light lump became an unconventional battlefield that pitted Fang Yuan, Tai Bai Yun Sheng and Giant Sun's will. Contest between wills involved profound techniques and skill. But be it Fang Yuan or Tai Bai Yun Sheng, they were not truly soul path Gu masters. Fang Yuan could be considered to have started it just recently while Tai Bai Yun Sheng was truly a novice, relying on nothing more than the instinct to move his thoughts. As for Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, his soul path attainment was definitely out of this world. Unfortunately, the one confronting the enemy was only the special will he had left behind. Thus, in this battle of wills, there were no fancy skills, it was only a head-on collision, a bloody fight. After a dozen or so breaths later, Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng's wills suffered disastrous losses. The quantity of giant suns will might be small, not even filling 1% of the true inheritance light lump, but it stood lofty and majestic. The main giant sun's will was vast, its power flowed without pause. Every bit of loss it suffered was immediately replenished. By contrast, Fang Yuan's group might have occupied the advantage of vast quantity, but they did not have high battle strength and were soon lacking the fuel to continue. Damn it! We can't expel Giant Sun's will, the situation has gone south. Tai Bai Yunsheng was deathly pale, the combined attack earlier was their most powerful method, but it showed no effect. Giant Sun's will was laughing heartily. Fang Yuan and the group lacked the energy to continue the attack, and after Giant Sun's will had resisted their most intense attacks, he began to expand his territory. In the true inheritance light lump, the part occupied by golden light began to expand bit by bit. N0V3LTR0VE served as the original host for this chapter's release on N0V3LB1N. Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng looked on with wide eyes, they staked all their energy, but were only able to slow down Giant Sun's will's speed of expansion. Giant Sun's will was truly terrifying. Even when it was schemed against repeatedly before, and most of its will was outside, suffering the deathly attacks from the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity, the remaining part was still a tall, mountain-like barrier to Fang Yuan's group. This enormous difference in their strengths was like a gulf between heaven and earth. We are going to lose. Tai Bai Yunsheng's tone was grave, this is just a will Giant Sun Immortal Venerable left behind, I really can't imagine how powerful he was when alive. Damn it, only one last step was remaining. Mo Yao's will grabbed her head, her voice mixed with a tone of sobbing and extreme regret, if only we were a step earlier, as long as we had 3 breaths of time, we would have succeeded. Never mind. Fang Yuan gnashed his teeth, his expression heavy. He had not given up yet, speaking with ruthless intent, in this situation, we are unable to get our hands on 88 True Yang building. We cannot exterminate Giant Sun's will, sooner or later it will swallow the space we occupy. But we have yet to lose. Don't forget, there are still the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities outside True Yang building. Are you saying? Tai Bai Yunsheng's expression changed, blurting out. His nature was benevolent and passive, but he was not stupid, and immediately realized when Fang Yuan mentioned it. That's right, if I can't obtain it, no one else should think about getting it. Since I can't get 88 True Yang building, I would rather destroy it. A ruthless glint shone in Fang Yuan's eyes, his tone was so cold it could make the listener shiver. But this is 88 True Yang building. Mo Yao resounded, but her tone was wavering. She had no choice but to accept this was the best method to escape their predicament. Giant Suns will finally stormed into true inheritance secluded domain. You 2 tiny ants, you actually forced me to this extent. You scheming scoundrels, your good days have come to an end, your sins are so great that even death would be letting you off cheaply. I will give you a punishment worse than death. I will peel off your skin, pull your tendons and let blood flow. I will burn your souls in flames and let you taste incomparable suffering for all eternity. The golden will roared like a furious sea, and whipped up huge waves with it. Schemed upon time and time again by Fang Yuan, suffering the unrestrained bombardment of the calamities, Giant Sun's will's fury had already reached the summit, swearing to kill Fang Yuan, the main culprit. Compared to the golden wave, Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng were as small as ants. The flying true inheritances were swallowed by the golden wave, resulting in splashes, but they stopped moving soon after. Giant sons will had once again taken control of these inheritances. However, most of the Gu worms required primeval essence or immortal essence to be activated, and just giant sons will could not activate them. At present, most of 88 True Yang building was controlled by Fang Yuan's group. As long as they did not let giant sons will obtain giant sons immortal essence, these Gu worms could not be used. Start. Fang Yuan gave a soft shout, his gaze flashing with sharp intent. Giant Sun's will's powerful approach also dispelled Tai Bai Yunsheng's hesitation. He was already completely tied to Fang Yuan's side and could only choose to forcibly advance together. 88 True Yang building originally shone with an aurora, but with the actions of Fang Yuan's group, the aurora rapidly dimmed until it dissipated. The furious golden sea suddenly stilled. The next moment, Giant Sun's will's furious roar reverberated. Bastards! You dared to make 88 True Yang building stop its operation, you damned scoundrels, you damned devious, shameless scoundrels. 88 True Yang building might have had wild will before, but it had just been born, thus it had still automatically operated as normal. However, Fang Yuan's group had refined most of 88 True Yang building and they forcibly made it stop its operations. Even the strongest fort would find it hard to resist an internal collapse. Although 88 True Yang building had not collapsed, its operations had stopped and just its shell had no might. Without any might, how could it resist the terrifying heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities? Fang Yuan's group could neglect 88 True Yang building, in any case, they would not be able to obtain 88 True Yang building if this situation progressed. However, Giant Sun's will could not neglect it. This was an inheritance from Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, left behind for the benefits of his descendants, it must not be destroyed. Giant Sun's will was left behind by the Immortal Venerable to manage 88 True Yang building, how could it just watch as the True Yang building was destroyed? Just you wait. The golden sea of will swiftly retreated. The vast will of Giant Sun surged out of the tower like water, forming a golden armor as a defense around it. Giant Sun's will had no choice but to suffer the ravaging bombardment of the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities to protect the weak 88 True Yang building. However, it still left behind a portion of will which surged towards Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng like a furious river. Fang Yuan, however, let out a breath of turbid air. Compared to the majestic furious sea from before, this will might be strong but they could deal with it, albeit with difficulty. Fang Yuan reluctantly took out a Gu from his pocket. It was Flying Bear Phantom Gu. Fang Yuan's will moved and through the Gu casually, the Flying Bear Phantom Gu flew forward, blossoming with beautiful white light. The white light dissipated and a giant flying bear protected Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng, obstructing the river of will. Damn it, Flying Bear Phantom Gu. Giant Sun's will cursed. Flying Bear Phantom Gu was rather special, it was an immortal Gu but it could be activated with just one's mind, without requiring immortal essence. Refining it was difficult and feeding it was not easy, requiring the fresh flesh of the desolate beast Flying Bear. Fortunately, Fang Yuan possessed who immortal blessed land and could feed this immortal Gu with the help of treasure yellow heaven. Even so, he had to pay an enormous price. Train an army for 1,000 days to use it in one fight. Now, it was time for Flying Bear Phantom Gu to show its worth. Chapter 625, Remaining Trump Card. The Flying Bear Phantom's battle strength, almost not at the level of the desolate beast Flying Bear, it had at least half immortal battle strength. Most importantly, it might look bulky and slow, but it was very agile. The river of Giant Suns will swirled to its left and right, attempting to get past the Flying Bear Phantom, to directly attack Fang Yuan and the others, obtaining victory. But he was still obstructed by the Flying Bear Phantom. The Flying Bear Phantom, even without Fang Yuan's manipulation, had some intelligence and was quite crafty, it could battle entirely alone. Swoosh! The fat and large bear paw slammed down, carrying the sound of the wind with it. Bam! The golden sand-like giant sun's will was smashed into bits by the bear paw, turning into golden dust as it dissolved in the air. The original appearance of this chapter can be found at N0V3L, bin. But this was just a subsidiary. The golden river that was giant sun's will was like a huge python coiling around the flying bear phantom tightly. At the same time, countless subsidiaries were created, attacking many areas of the flying bear phantom. The two were fighting closely, at a stalemate, neither could do anything to the other party. Giant sun's will could fuse and split at will, it had the freedom to change forms, flying bear phantom could not take it down. But giant sun's will was tangled by the flying bear phantom and could not deal with the most crucial person, Fang Yuan. Giant sun's will had inherited a portion of the immortal venerable's wisdom. It knew from the situation after some thinking, to kill Fang Yuan, it needed to use at least half of the river's will. But the remaining half was not the flying bear phantom's match. If he attacked forcefully, it was like he was handing the initiative over. If Fang Yuan retreated with the true inheritance light lump and dragged for time, after flying bear phantom destroys the giant sun's will that was left fighting it, the situation would become dangerous. He had already suffered a loss from splitting up earlier when he drew his will out of the true inheritance secluded domain. At that time, Fang Yuan had used the glass owner token to challenge a small portion of giant sun's will resolutely. In the end, both suffered injuries and eventually led to giant sun's will taking a huge risk and paying a huge price, but only managing to regain control of the tree men round. Fang Yuan's expression was grim. He sustained the true inheritance light lump, slowing giant sun's will's expansion progress while observing the situation in current battle state. If giant sun's will would split up again, that would be great. Unfortunately, it will never make the same mistake twice. Fang Yuan observed for a while, seeing giant sun's will fighting the flying bear phantom so intensely, but yet it did not think of splitting up. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart. The opponent was not making a mistake, thus Fang Yuan's predicament was getting more dangerous. Right now, most of giant sun's will was outside the building enduring the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity, to protect 88 True Yang building. Only 2 portions were left now. A portion was fighting with flying bear phantom. The other was competing with Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng, trying to refine the 88 True Yang building. The supreme true inheritance that represented 88 True Yang building's ownership only had a trace of golden color originally, but now this trace had grown to palm size. Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng had already squeezed out all of their potentials. They were shivering and their expressions were pale, they were sweating profusely but could not resist the expansion of Giant Sun's will's refinement. Giant Sun's will was simply too great. Tai Bai Yunsheng felt like he was facing a valley and mountain during the resistance, he was helpless and felt hopelessness. Even Fang Yuan, a demonic head with an iron will, felt a strong sense of dejection growing in his heart at this point. If he allowed the situation to develop like this, one day, when Giant Sun's will successfully expands, he would regain control of 88 True Yang building. By then, Fang Yuan and the others would be dead meat. He had to do something. Despite so, Fang Yuan had already been too deeply involved in this supreme true inheritance, he could not do anything else. His greatest battle strength now was the flying bear Phantom Gu, but it was already in use. Tai Bai Yunsheng was a temporary alliance mate that he obtained through swindling, but similar to Fang Yuan, he was already here engaging with Giant Sun's will, he could not do anything else. It could be said that other than the spring-autumn cicada, Fang Yuan had used all of his trump cards. Don't tell me, I really have to use the spring-autumn cicada this time. A thought flashed in Fang Yuan's mind. But immediately after, he rejected it. Spring-autumn cicada is not an immortal Gu that has a guaranteed success rate. I could fail. The black death bad luck on me right now is so thick. Once I self-detonate, my remaining consciousness would enter the spring-autumn cicada and travel upstream in the river of time. There is a high chance of meeting my end. My chances are probably lower than 1 out of 10. How could he resolve this situation? Sigh. Fong Yuan, we have no hope of success, let's retreat. Using fixed immortal travel, we can return to your blessed land. Tai Bai Yunxing suggested. Should he really retreat? At this point, if he gave in, Giant Suns would immediately regain control of 88 True Yang Building. By then, through his obstruction, would fixed immortal travel Gu still activate successfully? Even if he succeeded, would this satisfy him? Fong Yuan was indignant. He had planned this for so long, he schemed so hard, victory was almost in sight, an immense fortune and benefit was right before him, he was just one step away. Just one tiny step. I am really indignant. Wait. Fong Yuan's expression changed, he thought of Ma Hongyun. I have no trump cards, but I can make use of this chess piece. Inspiration flashed in his mind as Fong Yuan had no more hesitations, he flapped his wings and flew up with the supreme true inheritance. Where are we going? Tai Bai Yunxing asked quickly. Just follow me. Fong Yuan replied curtly. Fixed immortal travel Gu was in his possession and was refined by him, even if Tai Bai Yunxing wanted to retreat, without Fong Yuan's cooperation, he could not escape. Don't think of running away. The river-like giant suns will growled, splitting up and forming back into one entity again, passing the flying bear phantom and charging towards Fong Yuan and Tai Bai Yunxing. The flying bear phantom reacted quickly, it followed after them. Fong Yuan snickered, changing his direction. After moving in many directions, Flying Bear Phantom returned to Fong Yuan's side. Fong Yuan fled while battling, as the two sides fought and stopped many times. Sometimes, the river-like giant Suns was in front, sometimes, Fong Yuan took detours, using the Flying Bear Phantom to fight back. The road was filled with shocks but no real danger. Although there were true inheritances of all sizes flying around chaotically, because of the supreme true inheritance's aura, none got close. Using Flying Bear Phantom as a shield, the river-like giant Suns could not stop Fong Yuan's movement, he could only slow him down. But Fong Yuan's circumstances were the same. He and Tai Bai Yunxing could not do anything to the portion of giant Suns that was refining the 88 True Yang Building. In the contest of will, Fong Yuan and Tai Bai Yunxing were heavily suppressed, the golden light was expanding steadily, the two were bound to lose eventually. So you are here. When Fong Yuan saw the luck path true inheritance in his vision, he laughed loudly. What are you trying to do? The river-like giant Suns felt something amiss, he screamed out in panic. Tai Bai Yunxing looked at Fong Yuan with similar confusion. Fong Yuan laughed heartily, tell me, what will happen when two supreme true inheritances collide? The color on Tai Bai Yunxing's face changed, Fong Yuan's insanity made his heart jump. But thinking about it, he realized, this was an amazing and brilliant plan. He and Fong Yuan were unable to turn back now. The true inheritance light lump in their hands were extremely troublesome, if they let go, they would die, but if they did not, they would die sooner or later. But if the two supreme true inheritances collided, the results would be unthinkable. The consequences were so severe even giant Suns lost his composure. You, don't come over. Ma Hongyun shouted. Zhao Lianyun was tightly held in his arms. But on this stage, the two of them were simply the weakest. If not for their extreme luck, they would have been grinded to dust long ago during the intense battles. Under the influence of luck and coincidences, the Luck Path Supreme True Inheritance became their guardian angel, but it had been pushed into the True Inheritance secluded domain. After entering the True Inheritance secluded domain, the threat of the Luck Path True Inheritance hit rock bottom. It was almost a guaranteed success for Giant Sun's will to deal with the otherworldly demon. If not for Giant Sun's will being careful about protecting the Luck Path True Inheritance, and was forced by Fang Yuan, thus he could not leave and had to deal with him, he would have dealt with Ma and Zhao long ago. Ma Hongyun was safe and sound here. In a way, it was all thanks to Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yunsheng. But now, Fang Yuan was dragging the Supreme True Inheritance and rushed here on his own. What is he trying to do? Zhao Lianyun's body was shuddering. Through the translucent barrier, she was frantic and could see Fang Yuan's cold smile. No, you cannot do this. Quickly stop it. The river-like Giant Sun's will was shouting insanely from behind him. He was anxious. Once these two supreme true inheritances collide, they would definitely suffer great damages together. By that time, not only would the last remaining Luck Path True Inheritance get damaged or even destroyed, 88 True Yang Building would even suffer immense damage that would be hard to imagine. The river-like Giant Sun's will underwent intense thoughts. All of the thoughts that formed its will started self-detonating. The golden sand-like will in the shape of a river burst out with an eye-piercing light. His battle strength surged by at least half. Flying Bear Phantom growled angrily, but was suppressed thoroughly. Fang Yuan's brows were tightly locked. The situation was very dangerous. He had to put a portion of his concentration on the Flying Bear Phantom, manipulating it to battle personally. 500 years of battle experience was nothing to be scoffed at. Under her manipulation, Flying Bear Phantom moved more agilely. It ignored the injuries on it and blocked the river-like Giant Sun's will completely in the end. Fang Yuan, you are courting death. You want to deal with Ma Hongyun, but do not forget the overwhelming power of fortune rivaling Heaven Gu that he has. As long as you carry ill intent towards him, your luck will decrease drastically. Even if you have half immortal battle strength, and is able to resist it temporarily, how long can you last? The river-like Giant Sun's will saw that he could not break through and started shouting. Fang Yuan, Giant Sun's will is absolutely right, you need to be very careful. Mo Yao's will also said. Fang Yuan snorted, without a bit of hesitation in his heart. Seeking fortune amidst danger, to Fang Yuan, only by emerging victorious amidst chaos could he have a chance of survival. Seeing that the two supreme true inheritances were less than 1,000 steps away from each other, at this moment, there were ripples in the air, as dozens of figures were transported into the true inheritance secluded domain. They appeared ahead of Fang Yuan's flying route. They were almost all familiar faces. Yi Lui Sang, Gu Guolong, Bian Si Xian. The leader was a brawny and muscular man, with hammer-like fists. He laughed ruthlessly towards Fang Yuan. So you are called Fang Yuan. Old ancestor Giant Sun has already exposed both of your crimes to the outside world. Your schemes have been exposed, it is all over, your life will be over here. Who else was it but He Lulan? Tai Bai Yunsheng's expression changed abruptly. He could not free himself now as he was using all his strength to resist Giant Sun's will, who was refining the supreme true inheritance. The appearance of He Lulan and the others was simply too devastating. At the final juncture, this was akin to a fatal blow. Ha ha ha. The river-like Giant Sun's will laughed loudly behind them. You are all just in time. He praised He Lulan and the others fervently. This was definitely the act of the main will, who took some time to inform and mobilize this bunch of reinforcements. If this was during normal times, He Lulan and the others contained battle strength that was insignificant in Giant Sun's will's eyes. But at this time and place, they became a life-saving chess piece. They were the best bet in toppling the balance between the two sides. Fang Yuan, Tai Bai Yunsheng, you are all dead meat. The river-like Giant Sun's will growled, slowing down and attacking. The initiative was grasped by Giant Sun's will's side once again. We lost. Tai Bai Yun Sheng heaved a long sigh, turning over to look at Fang Yuan, mustering his spirit. Junior brother, enter my aperture, we will retreat. I have immortal essence, and you have fixed immortal travel. Now that giant sun's will is being troubled by the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity, we have to retreat now before it is too late. Fang Yuan, however, shook his head. It is already too late. Once we let go, 88 True Yang building will fall into the control of giant sun's will. This building has the ability to suck in immortal goo, and the range extends to the whole of northern plains. Even if we use fixed immortal travel, there is a high chance of failing in the end. Of course I know this. Tai Bai Yun Sheng's tone was anxious, but we can only take a risk, in order to fight for that slim chance of success. If we drag any longer and lose this last opportunity, we would not even have this slim chance of success left. Fang Yuan's gaze was flickering in hesitation. He looked at the supreme true inheritance in his hand once again. In the true inheritance light lump, the golden dazzling light had occupied a third of the light lump's capacity, and was expanding at an increasing speed. Fang Yuan breathed in deeply. I did not think that we will still get to this point. Sigh, if not for the circumstances, I would not want to do this. Junior brother, you still have a method left. Tai Bai Yun Sheng heard this and was shocked, overjoyed, and suspicious. Chapter 626, Immortal Ascension. At this moment, in true inheritance secluded domain, Ma Hongyun and Zhao Lianyun, who were mutually dependent on each other and under Luck Path's supreme true inheritance's protection, looked with panicked expressions. Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Sheng were in control of the supreme true inheritance that represented 88 True Yang building. The two sides were cut off by He Lu Lan and the others, forming a firm defensive line. Behind Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Sheng, the river-like giant sun's will and the flying bear phantom were fighting. Going even farther outside, the main giant sun's will covered 88 True Yang building, forcibly resisting the terrifying heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity, protecting the inheritance treasure of giant sun. Hearing Fang Yuan still had a method left, Tai Bai Yun Sheng was naturally overjoyed and immediately urged, Junior brother. What method do you have left? Quickly use it. Fang Yuan gave a bitter smile. Senior brother, honestly, because of this desperate situation, I have no other ways but to use this method. I hope you will ensure my safety at the crucial moment. That goes without saying, we are fellow disciples after all. Tai Bai Yun Sheng immediately guaranteed. Fang Yuan nodded and instructed, Senior brother, giant sun's will originated from giant sun immortal venerable, you must never underestimate it. Next, if it tries to sow discord between us, I won't be able to talk and defend myself, you must never believe it. Tai Bai Yun Sheng muttered, Junior brother, we are of one family, you do not need to say anything and can rest assured. But from your tone, it seems you have a lot of concern and reservation towards using this method. If you are not too sure, we can still use fixed immortal travel and leave immediately. Fang Yuan smiled lightly, revealing a confident expression, Haha. Senior brother, rest assured, this method has unparalleled might, even the main giant sun's will cannot leave unscathed. Just watch. The two had not used any goo worms to conceal their conversation. The experts present could not help but reveal shock and doubt. A method that can harm the main giant sun's will, what exactly is it? He Lu Lan frowned. He might look crude but was actually astute, and did not carelessly move forward to fight. Under everyone's gaze, Fang Yuan closed his eyes, slowly withdrawing his palms that were tightly grabbing the supreme true inheritance. This action immediately increased the pressure on Tai Bai Yun Sheng by several times. Tai Bai Yun Sheng was shocked, but fortunately Fang Yuan had reminded him before, and he was able to quickly exert all his strength to resist the fierce encroachment of giant sun's will. Junior brother, use your method quickly, I cannot hold on for long. Tai Bai Yun Sheng shouted, beads of sweat dripping down his face. In just a few short breaths of time, the golden light on the supreme true inheritance light lump wantonly expanded, becoming the size of a washing basin. The speed was quick and violent. "Let me see what deceit you are pulling." Looking at this state, He Lulan and the group did not dare to rashly charge ahead at this juncture. However, they had waited for a dozen breaths but still did not see any terrifying offense from Fong Yuan. This battlefield had sunk into a strange silence. The two sides did not speak, there were only the swoosh sounds of the flying true inheritances and the occasional collisions of the true inheritances. "Damn it, we were tricked." Yi Luisang was furious. This thief that disguised as Chang Shan is truly crafty. He is already at a dead end and has exhausted all his methods, but is still pretending that he has an unfathomable and profound trump card. "Everyone let's go, kill this audacious conspirator." Gu tribe's leader Gu Guo long shouted from the side. The leader, He Lulan, however, did not move. Not only was he not moving, his expression even turned grave. Could it be? Tai Bai Yunsheng looked at Fong Yuan with bewilderment. He was the nearest and thus felt a formless heavenly power suddenly forming around Fong Yuan, gently lifting him up. Tai Bai Yunsheng had an extremely deep impression of this heavenly power, after all he had personally experienced it not long ago. "Junior brother, you are shattering your aperture and ascending to immortal at this moment." Tai Bai Yunsheng's words startled everyone present. The journey of a Gu master crossing the mortal realm and ascending to an immortal was extremely dangerous and risky. To think Fong Yuan actually recklessly shattered his aperture at this dangerous moment, charging towards Gu immortal realm. Does this guy have a screw loose? He can't even understand his situation. Is he stupid? Did he see no chance of success and use this unusual method to die? For a moment, Yi Luisang and the others were filled with heavy doubts. But the next moment, Giant Sun's will's furious roar reverberated over the whole of the true inheritance secluded domain. "Fong Yuan, I curse you to have a terrible death. You actually shattered your aperture at this moment to attract the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity. You are actually so bent on destroying True Yang building. Everyone, kill this sinner quickly. The heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity are already showing changes." This roar was different from before. Besides the overflowing fury, Giant Sun's will's voice now also contained panic. The fusion of so many heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities would not be a simple addition of 1 + 1 = 2. The once in 10 years blizzard wreaked havoc over the whole of northern plains. Its range might be large but its might was not great. Even mortals could rely on some special places to forcibly resist it. The chaotic lightning balls and restraining smoke, left from Tai Bai Yunsheng's ascension, were mostly targeting wills and were only troublesome for Giant Sun's will. But these two merged together and formed Snow War Tribulation Lightning. This was one of the 10 great catastrophes. This tribulation lightning had terrifying power, and Giant Sun's will had to pay a large price to resist it. Now, if a new heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity was added on top of Snow War Tribulation Lightning, and if these two heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities merged together, the resulting change would have unparalleled power. Even Giant Sun's will felt fear. It was after all only a special will left behind by the immortal venerable, even if it could kill Gu immortals, but under the might of heaven, it paled in comparison. "Quick, old ancestor has spoken, we need to attack together. Follow me, kill these two. Heroes of northern plains, crush these two outsiders to meat paste." He Lulan and the rest were startled awake and started acting according to Giant Sun's will's command, fiercely charging forward. Before they even neared, their respective Gu worms were already activated, forming a majestic offense. Strength path phantoms, malevolent fiery snakes, terrifying sword lights, pure white snow, all kinds of attacks converged together, seemingly forming beautiful fireworks. The fatal crisis was approaching him, but Tai Bai Yunsheng did not spare even a trace of his thoughts to it, and used all his strength to resist the encroachment of the portion of Giant Sun's will in the true inheritance light lump. Fang Yuan opened his eyes, maneuvering the flying bear phantom as well as activating his killer move. 6-Arm Heavenly Zombie King. He turned into an 8-armed monster, his aura erupted and his will to fight flared. The flying bear phantom gave a miserable howl before using its gigantic body as a meat shield, blocking the attacks. The river-like Giant Sun's will was free to move, immediately attacking Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan protected Tai by Yunsheng, and welcomed the river-like Giant Sun's will without evading. Boom! The two sides fiercely collided, the resulting explosion let out brilliant golden sparks everywhere. Large numbers of special will shattered and dissipated. Fang Yuan also suffered heavy injuries, 6 of his arms broke apart, his chest caved in, his right lower leg was completely gone and one eye was blinded. Fang Yuan, your death is certain this time. You dared to ascend to Gu Immortal at this moment, who do you think you are? A reincarnated immortal venerable? Humph, since you are seeking your own death, I shall help you with it. The river-like Giant Sun's will formed a python shape that coiled around into a circle, accumulating its power, its whole body radiating with dazzling golden radiance. Fang Yuan snorted, not replying. The terrifying injuries on his body rapidly recovered at a visible speed. He had transformed into a heavenly zombie, the feeling of pain was completely gone and death energy replaced his life energy. His recovery speed was thus greatly amplified, having no need for any rank 5 healing goo. Boom, boom, boom. The intense collisions erupted repeatedly. Fang Yuan and the river-like Giant Sun's will carried out an intense battle. Thief, come down now. Giant Sun's will suddenly transformed into a giant hand and fiercely clawed at Fang Yuan's back. With a tearing sound. The eagle wings on Fang Yuan's back were directly torn apart, forming 2 enormous wounds that revealed his bones. Eagle Rise Gu perished. Fang Yuan was heavily injured, but he did not budge a bit, instead he fiercely twisted his waist. Crack! He moved with such strength that he actually broke apart his waist. Disregarding the injuries on his body, Fang Yuan swung his hammer-like fist straight into Giant Sun's will. Boom! In an instant, fierce wind surged and fist shadows flew with unstoppable momentum like a dragon overturning the river, like a fierce tiger leaving the mountain. The giant hand that Giant Sun's will had condensed into had no time to split apart before it was struck by this vicious strike. The massive will was bombarded by the attack and shattered, suffering huge damage. Amidst the drizzle of golden sand-like will, Fang Yuan took the chance to pull back like a bolt of lightning. Giant Sun's will had been waiting for a counterattack, but could only roar in fury as Fang Yuan was already far away. Fang Yuan was not a battle maniac and was as cool-headed as ice, never letting himself be overtaken by the heat of the fight. As the injuries on him rapidly healed, Fang Yuan gasped for breath. The pressure on him was as heavy as a mountain in this battle with Giant Sun's will. He had already used all his strength, but there was no doubt this was the strongest opponent he had faced since his rebirth. The two organized themselves again and after a few breaths of time, they charged at each other again. So what if you are an immortal Gu? Go and die. On the other battlefield, He Lulan's violent shout could be heard. Tens of strength path phantoms suddenly retreated and entered He Lulan's body. He Lulan's body merged with the strength path phantoms, transforming into a giant phantom within moments. The giant reached a height of over 100 feet. The muscles on it were bulging and vivid, and its appearance was exactly similar to He Lulan. Feel my killer move. The giant strength path phantom's voice rumbled like thunder. It headed straight towards the flying bear phantom and smashed its right fist at the flying bear phantom's skull. The flying bear phantom was being held under control by Yi Lui Sang and others. Caught unprepared, it was sent rolling down. Smash! The giant strength path phantom showered the flying bear phantom with punches, the flying bear phantom was heavily injured after suffering the continuous attacks, and angrily counterattacked. However, the giant strength path phantom was nimble and displayed a master-level attainment in close combat. After a while, the flying bear phantom's body was beaten into such a mess that its original appearance was indistinct. The final strike. The giant strength path phantom raised its right leg and smashed down like an axe. Boom! A huge rumbling sound echoed, the flying bear phantom could no longer endure and its stout giant body disappeared, turning back into Gu form and flying away shakily. The giant strength path phantom grabbed the immortal Gu and smiled malevolently towards Fang Yuan. He Lu Lan's true strength has reached such a level. Too terrifying, he can almost destroy an immortal Gu. My loss in this imperial court contest was not unjust. Yi Lui Sang and others looked on with wide-open eyes. He Lu Lan's battle strength was absolutely not inferior to Fang Yuan's, and was even higher in certain aspects because of his great strength true martial physique. Flying Bear Phantom was an immortal Gu but without any Gu worms as assistants and Fang Yuan not maneuvering it personally, it was normal for it to be captured by He Lu Lan. The Flying Bear Phantom was destroyed, while Tai Bai Yun Sheng was using all his strength to contend with Giant Sun's will for the supreme true inheritance. As such, Fang Yuan who was in an intense battle with the river-like Giant Sun's will was alone and facing danger. You have a good head on your shoulders, I will take it as my victory trophy and preserve it. He Lu Lan's voice came out from the giant strength path phantom. It slowly flew towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan, give up resisting. You no longer have a way out. The river-like Giant Sun's will spoke. Although it had fought with Fang Yuan only for a short time, its size was already less than half of before. One could say Fang Yuan, being able to force the immortal Venerable's will to this state, had tremendous battle strength which was not inferior to He Lu Lan's. Unfortunately, he was shrouded in a black coffin luck aura and his circumstances were extremely bad. Even if he was greatly resourceful and extremely brave, it seemed that he would be unable to reverse this situation. Ha ha ha. Fang Yuan threw his head back and laughed loudly. His laughter resounded through the battlefield, displaying a matchless bravery. Giant Sun's will, you want to break my spirit by every possible means, but my heart is like iron and my will is like steel. Our battle has just begun. The river-like Giant Sun's will did not retort, instead falling into silence. The giant strength path phantom He Lu Lan had transformed into also stopped its movements. Heaven and earth chi manifested around Fang Yuan. Gu masters shattered their aperture to ascend to Gu immortal realm, which would attract heaven and earth chi. Fang Yuan was inside 88 True Yang building which delayed this for a moment. That short moment was the most dangerous and most difficult time, but Fang Yuan was able to hold on by exerting all of his methods. In the vicinity of heaven and earth chi, ordinary Gu worms could not be used and their activation would cause a backlash. In severe cases, even immortal Gu could also perish. He Lu Lan was only using mortal Gu, and had no choice but to stop. The process of Fang Yuan's immortal ascension had officially begun. Chapter 627, Top 10 Catastrophes, Chaotic Branching Teeth. Clear and glorious heaven chi, golden earth chi, more and more of them surrounded Fang Yuan. He Lu Lan and the others retreated. The river-like Giant Sun's will growled endlessly, but did not dare to charge in abruptly. After the intense battle with Fang Yuan, its mass was reduced by more than half. It was anxious internally, damn it. Unless the main will sends reinforcements over, I alone cannot take down this Fang Yuan. The battlefield turned silent temporarily. Fang Yuan saw that the situation had progressed just as he expected, breathing out a huge sigh of relief. In the contest for 88 True Yang building, after several twists and turns, the current situation was becoming clearer. Fang Yuan's situation was like walking on a tightrope, intense wind was blowing and he was almost blown away several times, losing his initiative. If not for his brilliant schemes and endless trump cards, he would not have lasted this long. Especially this time, Fang Yuan gambled his life, bravely going for a mutual defeat, finally managing to get back the initiative. My Northern Plains trip has reached the most crucial climax. Next, my immortal ascension is extremely important, it can almost decide victory and loss in this battle. Fang Yuan concentrated his mind, just as he had said, the real battle was just beginning. Junior brother, don't be too careless. Tai Bai Yunxing's tone was solemn, his gaze was anxious as his heart was full of worry. He had just become an immortal, he was extremely clear about the difficulties of immortal ascension. He knew, if not for Giant Sun's will's help, he would not have succeeded. Even if he had his life's accumulation and that deep foundation. Sai, junior brother is too young and daring, he should not have made this choice. Had I known earlier, I would not have let him take this step. Sai, hopefully, he had received master's guidance and can succeed luckily. Tai Bai Yunxing sighed in his heart. Fang Yuan made eye contact with Tai Bai Yunxing, nodding his head. Next, he closed his eyes, his mind entering his aperture. Ordinary Gu masters and Gu immortals, in their entire lives, they can only have one aperture. But Fang Yuan had once taken a major risk in Three Kings' blessed land, obtaining an immense opportunity. Thus, after using the second aperture Immortal Gu, he now had two apertures. After the Imperial Court contest, both his apertures were rank 5 peak stage, crystal purple primeval essence. There were 3 steps in immortal ascension, the first was to shatter the aperture. Fang Yuan shattered the second aperture. When Gu masters shatter their aperture, they can only advance with no way of retreating. That is because they only have one aperture. But Fang Yuan had 2. That means, even if Fang Yuan fails this tribulation, he would lose one aperture, but he would still keep another aperture. Keeping one aperture could preserve his life. This was one of the benefits of second aperture Gu. Tai Bai Yunxing did not know this secret, if he knew, the worry in his heart would dissipate greatly. Crack. 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 Lightning bolts shot down endlessly, targeting Giant Sun's will. Fang Yuan, you scoundrel, you will die a terrible death. Giant Sun's will howled, he resisted the tribulation lightning as his golden sand-like will exploded time and time again. This lightning bolt was extraordinary, it had the appearance of a trident and had great power, as one of the 10 great catastrophes. Originally, Snow War tribulation lightning did not strike at such close intervals, one bolt would form every tens of breaths time. But now, when Fang Yuan shattered his aperture and drew in a heaven and earth chi, a new heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity were formed. The heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity fused with the once in 10 years blizzard, increasing the power of the snow disaster. Snow War tribulation lightning acted like it was on drugs, in its excitement, several bolts were shot down with less than a breath's interval each time. Every time he resisted it, Giant Sun's will paid a heavy price. But he could not leave. 88 Truyang Building needed his protection. Now that 88 Truyang Building had lost almost all its functions, it was like an empty shell. If Giant Sun's will's protection was lifted, in just a moment, the entire 88 Truyang Building would be crumbled under the terrifying might of the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity. 88 Truyang Building was an inheritance treasury that Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had left behind, with Giant Sun's will as the controller of this building. Its main objective forced Giant Sun's will to resist the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity head-on. This way, he had become Fang Yuan's protector during this tribulation. Protecting his sworn enemy and helping him to ascension to immortal realm, Giant Sun's will, who was forced by circumstances and had to do this, could feel an immense humiliation and rage in his heart. Fang Yuan, you scoundrel, once I survive this heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity, I will tear your tendons out, I will drink your blood and eat your flesh. Giant's sons will howled, even though there was the sound of thunder, it could not mask his rage. Very soon, his howling came to an end, it turned into shock. This is the chaotic branching teeth. Only to see that in the air filled with lightning and thunder, 18 spirals appeared. The spirals spun faster and faster, as they expanded rapidly. In each of these black spirals, there was a large snow-white beast tooth forming slowly. A total of 18 beast teeth, each white as snow, with a huge size like that of ancient trees, over 30 meters tall. The beast teeth were waiting to strike, and an intense feeling of danger struck Giant Sun's Will's heart. Chaotic branching teeth was also one of the top 10 catastrophes, ranked higher than even the snow war tribulation lightning, and had greater might. I cannot allow all 18 chaotic branching teeth to strike at the same time. At that time, even I cannot resist it. I must destroy them in advance. Giant Sun's will was full of battle experience, he chose to strike immediately. He had no hesitation, creating 10 wills in the form of dragons, flying about and charging towards the heavenly tribulation in the sky with no fear. However, along the way, there were wind blades, icy hail, and snow war tribulation lightning that attacked non-stop. The 10 dragon wills suffered heavy casualties along the way, only 5 made it to the spirals. In fact, the result of their attacks was not very evident. Only 3 succeeded, destroying the spirals. The remaining 2 dragon wills suffered too much damage, the spirals that they charged towards flickered for a bit before recovering. The tribulation lightning crackled, the speed of attacks becoming even quicker than before. It was like a wordless mockery towards Giant Sun's will. Damn it! Despicable! Giant Sun's will was helpless, he split out another 10 dragons and charged again in desperation. Within true inheritance secluded domain, it was a scene of serenity. Fang Yuan shut his eyes, his expression was calm and he breathed in relaxation. His mind was mostly focused on the shattered second aperture. My first aperture is my vital Gu spring-autumn cicada. This Gu is incomparably important, if I ascend to a mortal realm with it, I will be a time path Gu immortal. But my knowledge of time path is too limited, and to undergo tribulation with immortal Gu, I cannot take this risk without any experience. Only the second aperture, with the vital Gu all-out effort Gu, I can become a strength path Gu immortal. Since rebirth, I had studied strength path intensely, although it is not on the level of blood path, I still have the foundation to become an immortal. This second aperture had already shattered into a mess, forming a hole and sucking in the heaven chi and earth chi. Tai Bai Yun Sheng was less than 100 years old, but he had the foundation and accumulation to become a Gu immortal. Fang Yuan had 500 years of experience, and his knowledge surpassed Tai Bai Yun Sheng who had an immortal inheritance, it was definitely more than sufficient for him to rise to immortal. Except that now, it is still not the best time to ascend to immortal. Fang Yuan laughed bitterly in his mind. Fang Yuan's strength path cultivation had not reached its limits. He had only 100 June of strength, and his bones were impermanence bones, his skin was turtle jade wolf skin, and his strength path Gu worms were not all rank 5. All these affected his future potential after becoming an immortal, as well as the size of his immortal aperture, it would be best if he could perfect them. Fang Yuan's original intention was to accumulate his foundation to the absolute limit before taking the risk of immortal ascension after making ample preparation. Unfortunately, plans do not keep up with changes. Forced by the situation, Fang Yuan could only do this. As the heaven and earth chi entered his body, at the same time, Fang Yuan's body was emitting a thick white human chi. The thickness of the human chi was like a huge balloon, completely covering Fang Yuan's entire body. He Lulan saw this and his pupils shrunk. Yi Luisang said in disbelief, "How is this possible? He has such thick human chi, this is even greater than Tai Bai Yun Sheng. To think that junior brother's foundation is so deep. I can see that junior brother had made preparations for this immortal ascension long ago. He is not taking an impulsive risk. Tai Bai Yunsheng looked with a surprised gaze, his heart settling. The clear and unrestrained heaven chi, the golden and heavy earth chi, together with the pure white as snow human chi, the three merged and formed a multicolored lump. At this point, he had reached the second step of immortal ascension, taking in the chi. Damn it, the scoundrel has started taking in the chi. Why are the reinforcements not here yet? The river-like giant sun's will was burning with anxiety. He did not dare to act rashly. Once he was stained by heaven chi, he would melt into air. If he was corroded by earth chi, he would turn into rocks and die. Fang Yuan, who was the intersection point of the three chi, faced dangers after dangers even more so. He had to balance the three chi at all times. If there were too much heaven and earth chi, he would die. Even human chi, if the balance was off, would cause him to self-detonate. However, fortune is found within danger. The greater the risks, the greater the opportunities. The balance of the three chi, the fusion between them was bringing Fang Yuan an unceasing amount of inspiration. Heaven and earth were the foundation stones that nurtured all life. The fusion of heaven and earth chi filled Fang Yuan's mind with the grand mysteries of the great Tao. The three chi were fusing intensely, as Fang Yuan was inside, returning to his usual appearance after recalling the six-arm heavenly zombie king killer move. His injuries were rapidly healing. The healing speed was faster than his healing during six-arm heavenly zombie king mode. The three chi cleansed his body, not just his flesh, but his soul, mind, and will. They were being elevated. He felt like a baby, being cleansed and returned to a pure state. Fang Yuan's eyes became clearer, the contrast between the black and white parts became more evident. His muscles were reconstructed one by one, the scars on his body fell off, and new skin grew on him. Even his hair started growing wildly. It grew longer and longer. When they were waist long, they broke, before growing again, and breaking, repeating the cycle. Be it his body, his bones, his organs or his face, they were undergoing a magical transformation. At the same time, the experiences in his previous 500 years, as well as the events since rebirth flashed in his mind rapidly. In just a short amount of time, Fang Yuan revisited his entire life. A complex feeling that was indescribable, his memories that were deep within his mind all resurfaced, filling Fang Yuan's heart. In his memories, all those cultivation questions that could not be answered obtained perfect answers like the work of a deity. At this moment, heaven and earth were impartial, they were generous and imparted the mysterious of the great Tao towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan had to deal with his emotions while cherishing this opportunity to learn more about the mysteries of the great Tao, and in the meantime balancing the three chi. Should he lose balance, he would die. Countless Gu masters failed at this step during their ascension. Chapter 628, Formidable He Lu Lan. In true inheritance secluded domain, Fang Yuan was surrounded by the thick lump of the three-colored chi, his body completely hidden. Junior brother, you have to control yourself. I am not concerned with you having to deal with the emotional turbulence, but I'm afraid that you are young and brave, and might be greedy towards the mysteries of the great Tao, forgetting your limits and taking in too much heaven and earth chi. Tai Bai Yunsheng's gaze was filled with worry. Heaven and earth chi had already spread to his surroundings. He had to flew away from Fang Yuan slowly. Giant Sun's will who was fighting with him over the control of the supreme true inheritance slowed his steps. Tai Bai Yunsheng's pressure reduced, and his situation turned for the better. This accursed scoundrel, he actually has so much human chi. Damn it, why hasn't he lost balance yet? The river-like giant Sun's will gritted his teeth and cursed. He was not the only one hoping for such a result. He Lu Lan and the others were having the same thoughts. This guy is so young, yet he can balance the three chi for so long. He and Tai Bai Yunsheng address each other as disciple brothers. They must have some extraordinary origin. Don't tell me he is really going to become a Gu immortal. No way. Is becoming a Gu immortal so easy? Do you think Ancestor Giant's son is useless? Everyone conversed in secret, not daring to make a move. With such intense heaven and earth chi, once they suffer a backlash, it would be no joke. Fang Yuan was inside the lump of chi, but his calm face showed a faint smile. Incredible, simply incredible. His eyes were shut tight as he mumbled. All sorts of great Tao mysteries were flowing into his mind like a warm spring. In his previous life, Fang Yuan underwent immortal ascension and became a blood path Gu immortal. This was his second ascension. With this valuable experience, he was much calmer than any other Gu master in the world. Compared to usual Gu masters, he also knew the truth behind this event. Man is the spirit of all being, they have the greatest spirituality. Gu are the essence of heaven and earth, they are the carriers of the great Tao. Any path to longevity was a path of transcendency. To transcend, one needed accumulation. And the most basic method of accumulating one's foundation was to learn. Gu masters use Gu, nurture Gu, and refine Gu. From Gu, they learn about the mysteries of heaven and earth indirectly. But when a Gu master undergoes ascension, they were directly conversing and interacting with heaven and earth. This interaction was extremely precious, most likely, each person only had one of such an opportunity in their life. Fang Yuan treasured this opportunity greatly, he grabbed onto it and tried his best to make use of it. The mysteries of heaven and earth were even deeper and more profound than the depths of the sea. Fang Yuan knew his limits, he did not venture into it aimlessly, but instead, steered toward strength path, deepening his understanding and feeling the true essence of this path. He had after all, only cultivated strength path on the side in his previous life, even though he cultivated strength path directly in this life, it was only for a short time. His original attainment in strength path, strictly speaking, was only quasi-strength path master. But making use of this opportunity, his understanding of strength path surged, bursting through the sky. Very quickly, he got past the barrier to strength path master, quickly surpassing master realm and charging towards the realm of grandmaster. Fang Yuan had no choice but to do this. The second aperture that he shattered had the rank for all-out effort Gu as its vital Gu. This Gu was of the strength path, if it was put in first during the third step, it would help Fang Yuan become a strength path Gu immortal. But this Gu was not rank 5, with a lower rank, Fang Yuan could only use a higher strength path attainment to compensate for the difference, otherwise, the third step of putting in Gu would be extremely risky. If the immortal aperture could not be created, this immortal ascension would end in failure. Outside True Yang Building. Intense winds were blowing, tribulation lightning was striking. The heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities formed a cocoon chi lump. The chi lump was extremely huge and completely covered 88 True Yang Building within it. After Fang Yuan shattered his aperture, the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities underwent a new terrifying change. In order to protect 88 True Yang Building, giant suns will had no choice but to resist it. Now was the crucial moment. Bam! Following the intense sounds of the wind, 9 snow-white chaotic branching teeth shot out together like lightning. Their speed was so fast only 9 shadows could be seen, resembling flashes of lightning. Giant Sun's will was already mentally prepared, he had been waiting. The will armor that was shielding 88 True Yang Building increased in thickness by many times, becoming 10 meters thick. At the same time, Giant Sun's will split out dozens of will hands, opening the palms and creating a barrier in the air. 9 chaotic branching teeth shot down at once, during their descent they collided with each other, causing their directions to change randomly, turning left and right, it was unpredictable. The will hands flew around following them, defending desperately. The chaotic branching teeth pierced many of the will hands, stabbing the main giant sun's will and causing 9 deep holes to appear on the thick will armor that was 1,000 times tougher than steel. Giant Suns will grunted, the will's main body was only chaotic for a moment before calming down. Looking at his injuries, Giant Suns will could not help but feel shocked. 9 wounds of varying depth, 2 were 6 meters deep, almost piercing into 88 True Yang building. It was really a dangerous scene. Thankfully, I spared no effort in destroying half of the chaotic branching teeth earlier. Otherwise, if all 18 moved at once, their trajectory would be even harder to predict. How would I be able to weaken them while in the air? Giant Suns will felt some relief, but his hatred and anger towards Fang Yuan also intensified. This accursed scoundrel Fang Yuan. I am actually shielding him during his immortal ascension. As long as I recover sufficiently, I will definitely, Giant Suns will stared at the 18 spirals forming in the air in a daze. There is actually a second wave of chaotic branching teeth. Seeing this, Giant Suns was fuming with anger. To defend against the chaotic branching teeth earlier, he had expended a sixth of his thoughts. But now there was a second wave. Wait, this is... Among the 18 spirals, another 18 spirals started forming. Seeing this, even Giant Suns felt suffocated. The third wave of chaotic branching teeth came together with the second. He howled at the sky, the armor-like mane shook intensely, almost breaking apart. If he could vomit blood, he would have vomited a river by now. Earlier when defending against the 9 chaotic branching teeth, Giant Suns had already used his full strength. Right now, there were a total of 36 spirals, 36 chaotic branching teeth. This fearsome power could not be calculated by simple addition. This scoundrel Fang Yuan. I curse you to die. Giant Suns almost wanted to discard 88 True Yang building at this moment, directly going to Fang Yuan and killing him without considering the consequences. But he was not an anger will, but a special will. He had to think of the big picture. He had to protect this inheritance treasure which was 88 True Yang building. He had to contact the other subsidiary wills and gather all his strength, in order to resist these heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities. What? The main will wants to send me to defend against the heavenly tribulations? Within True Inheritance secluded domain, the river-like Giant Suns was still waiting for reinforcement, but the reply from the main caused his heart to turn cold, like he had fallen into an icy river. God damn it! Giant Suns which was contesting with Tai Bai Yunxing over the supreme True Inheritance felt great regret, but he had to divert most of his strength to the main will. But to prevent 88 True Yang building from being taken by Tai Bai Yunxing, a portion of Giant Suns was still needed to maintain the situation inside the True Inheritance light lump. Tai Bai Yunxing felt his pressure decreasing all of a sudden, and heaved a sigh of relief. Giant Suns has finally stopped expanding. Junior brother, your plan has worked perfectly. It seems that the fusion of 3 heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities creates terrifying might that would force even Giant Suns to defend against it with all his strength. Junior brother, you are worthy of being benefactor's disciple, you need to survive this. The third step of putting in Gu is the most important of all, success or failure will all depend on this. As time continued to pass, the 3-colored chi lump surrounding Fang Yuan started shrinking, until it completely went into the area of Fang Yuan's broken aperture. He actually completed the step of taking in the chi, he is at the final step. He Lu Lan and the others were watching by the side, seeing Giant Suns retreating, they panicked. What do we do now? Do we just watch him become a Gu immortal? Yi Lui Sang screamed. Fang Yuan has no more heaven and earth chi around him, we should go and kill him now. Bian Si Xian suggested, but she made no movement. Everyone looked at each other, they were shocked, suspicious, and in a difficult spot. Fang Yuan still had the Gu immortal Tai Bai Yunxing supporting him. Tai Bai Yunxing's pressure was lifted, he held the True Inheritance light lump as he faced He Lu Lan and the rest of the gang, showing an unyielding attitude. Tai Bai Yun Sheng is not a problem, but once the immortal ascension succeeds, our problems would be endless. He is not a weak healing Gu immortal like Tai Bai Yun Sheng. He Lu Lan clenched his fists, a fierce light shining in his eyes. After thinking about it, he made up his mind and shouted, "Attack!" Saying so, the Strength Path Phantom Giant took huge strides forward, attacking. Tai Bai Yun Sheng was crying in his heart. He did not dare to take on He Lu Lan's attacks directly. He shouted, "You dare! As long as you come, I will throw this supreme true inheritance at the luck path true inheritance. Let's see how you account to giant sons will then." Everyone's fighting intent evaporated after hearing Tai Bai Yun Sheng's threat, their morale sinking. "Don't listen to him, we'll leave a few people to protect the luck path true inheritance, the rest will come with me." He Lu Lan snorted, immediately saying. Tai Bai Yun Sheng's heart sank. It was difficult for him to handle the situation. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Fang Yuan laughed wildly from behind him. He had already opened his eyes. "Never mind. Come and chase me. Let's see how many of you are flying masters." Eagle Rise Gu had already been destroyed, but why would the vigilant him not have spares? Fang Yuan owned Hu immortal blessed land and could connect to treasure yellow heaven. He did not lack any mortal Gu. This sentence was even more demoralizing to the gang compared to Tai Bai Yun Sheng. Once they thought of Fang Yuan's flying master attainment, and the huge space that was available in True Inheritance secluded domain, all of their morale almost hit rock bottom. He Lu Lan's gaze shone for a bit, but he was unmoved. He was the lord of the imperial court for this round. He had exemplary talent and a ruthless nature. He would not become dejected with just a few words. "We will chase him even if we cannot catch him. I want to see how he can undergo immortal ascension under such pressure." He Lu Lan's words lifted the morale once again. Fang Yuan's expression turned grim. He did not speak anymore. He Lu Lan hit the main point. During an ordinary immortal ascension, the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity would be all around him. If his enemies wanted to obstruct him, they would face the might of the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity. But now that giant sun's will was blocking the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities outside, it gave He Lu Lan and the others an opportunity to intervene. Although in this true inheritance secluded domain, there was still heaven and earth chi left that could cause backlash in mortal Gu. But He Lu Lan and the others were just like Fang Yuan, they were all using mortal Gu, thus they all faced the same backlash. At once, the situation changed again. Although giant sons were left to resist the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities wholeheartedly, Fang Yuan's predicament did not become any easier. He Lu Lan was indeed a formidable character. He was an outstanding person and knew the perfect timing to strike. Fang Yuan's immortal ascension was stuck between the second and third step. The situation had turned dangerous yet again. Chapter 629, Formless Hand. "Fang Yuan, why are you running? You cowardly scum, are you afraid? Do you have the guts to fight me for 300 rounds? You are unworthy of disguising as Chang Shan Yin. You don't even have 1% of his bravery." Inside True Inheritance secluded domain. Fang Yuan was flying away rapidly while the others chased from behind, taunting him endlessly. These insults and provocations fell on deaf ears. Fang Yuan's expression was tranquil without any emotions. He was closely observing his surroundings. True Inheritance secluded domain was vast, but it was not a flat area, and many True Inheritance meteors flew around in disorder, even colliding occasionally. Giant sons will had taken control of many True Inheritances just before, but there were still many masterless True Inheritances left in True Inheritance secluded domain. If Fang Yuan was unfortunately obstructed by these True Inheritances, the group of Gu masters behind him would be able to near him. Once he was encircled, the situation would turn much more dangerous. Right at this moment, a dark red true inheritance meteor flew towards Fang Yuan. Windflower Gu. Fang Yuan, however, had a slight smile on his face as he inwardly willed. A gust of wind condensed into a giant flower which suddenly appeared beside him. The wind flower nimbly changed its direction, carrying him with it. Swoosh! A sharp ear-piercing wind breezed past. Fang Yuan brushed past this unparalleled true inheritance light lump. The unparalleled true inheritance shot forward directly towards the group of Gu masters behind. The group was caught unprepared and panicked for a moment, dodging and fleeing. Taking advantage of this time, Fang Yuan increased his speed and rapidly pulled apart the distance between him and the group. He Lulan's group naturally was not willing to see this situation. Each of them was an elite. They immediately reacted and sent out countless long-range attacks. Fang Yuan sneered, using the primeval essence in his first aperture. Flash Bug Gu. This was a rare space path movement Gu, and under its effect, Fang Yuan immediately disappeared from the spot. When he appeared, he was already 500 steps ahead. The attacks from He Lulan and the others thus landed on nothing. Fang Yuan stopped Flash Bug Gu and changed to Eagle Rise Gu. Flash Bug Gu was a rank 5 Gu, but its speed was not great, and it also expended a lot of purple crystal primeval essence to move forward by 500 steps per use. Its main usage was to make sudden movements to avoid attacks. To truly speed up and fly for a long distance, Eagle Rise Gu was still a lot better. Eagle Rise Gu might only be rank 4 Gu, but there were 6 wings on Fang Yuan's back. He had simultaneously used 3 Eagle Rise Gu. Eagle Rise Gu's speed was very impressive and rapidly transported him away, while also consuming less primeval essence. The group of Gu masters chasing Fang Yuan could only gnash their teeth as he rapidly flew away. Damn it! This guy is truly slippery, only focusing on running away. He has not even a bit of bravery. Didn't he shatter his aperture to ascend to Gu Immortal? How come he still has so much primeval essence left? There are many methods for Gu masters to preserve primeval essence. So what if the aperture is shattered? One just needs to have Gu that can store primeval essence like Fish Bubble Gu, Beggar Moth, or Graveyam Gu. My movement Gu can't endure it. The backlash from heaven and earth chi is really terrifying. He Lulan sneered, we are suffering backlash. He is also in the same situation. We will continue chasing without stop. The enemy is a flying master. It is normal for us to not be able to reach him. But as long as we chase closely and not give him time to advance to a Gu Immortal, we will have fulfilled our objective. Fang Yuan glanced back and seeing that the pursuers had no intention of giving up, the anxiety in his heart deepened. Without doubt, he had to admit that He Lulan was striking at his weak point. Bursts of pain spread from his second aperture. The second aperture was already shattered, forming a hole which was occupied by a lump of 3-colored chi at this moment, waiting for the vital Gu to be put into it and reach the final step, accumulating its foundation till the immortal aperture is born. If the immortal aperture was not created, Fang Yuan would perish from the backlash of heaven and earth chi. If the immortal aperture was created, no matter which grade it was, Fang Yuan would have to concentrate on it fully at that moment, causing him to enter a period of weakness where he would be defenseless. This time could be long or short, depending on the person. If the enemies took advantage of this time, Fang Yuan's situation would be bleak and was very likely to die in a tragic end. At present, He Lulan's group was firmly blocking Fang Yuan at this step. Fang Yuan did not dare to place in his Gu and could only look on as the extremely compressed 3-colored lump of chi started to vibrate. I can't continue like this. If it is put off any longer, the 3-colored lump of chi will disperse and all my accumulations used in advancing to Gu Immortal will vanish into thin air. Fang Yuan kept on thinking of one solution after another to get out of this predicament. Rumble. Right at this time, True Inheritance secluded domain started shaking. Rumble. Another tremor soon spread, causing everyone to panic. What is going on? What happened? Is True Inheritance secluded domain collapsing? He Lulan, Yi Lui Sang and others had a worried expression, realizing fully well in their mind, this was the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities outside starting to affect 88 True Yang building. Fang Yuan and Tai Bai Yun Sheng were instead overjoyed. This signified giant sun's will had already staked all its strength, but the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities was so terrifying that even it had reached its limit. Damn it, damn it. I barely endured it. Giant sun's will gasped for breath with fear and joy, it did not even have the energy to curse Fang Yuan. The 10-meter thick golden armor created by giant sun's will that had covered 88 True Yang building tightly was now left with nothing but a thin layer with its luster dimmed. 36 chaotic branching teeth attacking together was not a simple matter of addition, their overall might was amplified by close to 10 times. During this whole process Snow War Tribulation lightning attacked crazily like the attacks were free. The lightning which flashed in intervals before had almost become unending like sunlight, one could see the terrifying frequency of Snow War Tribulation lightning. Giant sun's will avoided death narrowly, but there was not even 1% of the original will remaining. The first reveal of this chapter happened through N0/Vel B J N. He used all his strength and put in all of his effort to destroy 11 spirals in advance. The remaining chaotic branching teeth erupted together, giant sun's will used all his ability and blocked most of them, but he could not block 7 of them. 7 scars appeared on 88 True Yang building. 4 scars even directly penetrated through True Yang building, opening up 4 passages. The tremor Fang Yuan and the rest felt in True Inheritance secluded domain originated from this. My 88 True Yang building. Giant sun's will's heart bled at the sight and almost howled out in grief. The losses were too severe, not only were the numbers of Gu worms destroyed extremely huge, 2 immortal Gu were also destroyed. Who knew how long it would take to replenish these Gu worms and restore 88 True Yang building to its complete form? Fang Yuan, you insufferable bastard. You are undergoing the tribulation, yet I was the one who bore the consequences. I will make sure you regret being born into this world. Giant sun's will cursed fiercely in his heart. The giant cocoon formed from the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities had already thinned. Several rays of light pierced through the layers of dark clouds and shone down on the damaged 88 True Yang building. Heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities were slowly dissipating. Giant sun's will felt a huge stone lifting off his heart and was joyous to the point of crying, the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities have finally ended. I managed to endure it. Although 88 True Yang buildings suffered heavy damage, the fundamental Gu worms haven't been lost, and the mortal Gu might have been destroyed in large numbers, but they can be replenished. The destroyed immortal Gu are rather troublesome to obtain, but they also can be refined again. Even if others refine them first, I can use other Gu worms to replace them. The situation is set, now I shall get rid of the otherworldly demon then teach that scum Fang Yuan his place. The heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities were dissipating in front of his eyes, giant sun's will saw the time to take revenge was here and his mood took a turn for the better. However, right at this time, a light blue giant hand gradually appeared in front of giant sun's will. This is. The remaining giant sun's will trembled intensely, even more frightened than seeing 70 or even 80 chaotic branching teeth at once. This is thieving heaven demon venerable's killer move, formless hand. This accursed Fang Yuan, how is his luck so bad that he attracted this disaster? Rank 9 Gu immortals were invincible under the heavens and could leave behind unique traces in the whole world. Even after death, some of their killer moves could emerge again during heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities. I got it. This Fang Yuan is too audacious, he was set on killing the child of luck Ma Hongyun and suffered the backlash from fortune rivaling Heaven Gu, causing his luck to be completely messed up, thus attracting such terrifying a heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity. Giant Sons will felt extremely agonized when he realized the cause. Going to the bottom of this, it was Giant Son Immortal Venerable who left behind fortune rivaling Heaven Gu. Under an absurd combination of different factors, Giant Sons was actually suffering a loss from his own arrangement. Back then, the whole world was helpless when thieving Heaven Demon Venerable used Formless Hand to rob countless Gu worms. Fortunately, this Formless Hand only has 5 fingers, thus at most, it can only seize rank 5 Gu, oh heavens. Giant Son's will's pitch suddenly rose an octave higher, crying out in shock. The heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity slowly dissipated, large numbers of formless hands appeared one after another. 2, 3, 20, 30, 200, 300. Innumerable formless hands appeared, covering the whole sky. Among them, 1 finger to 5-fingered formless hands occupied the majority. There were 16 6-fingered formless hands and 9 7-fingered formless hands. There were even 3 8-fingered formless hands. Impossible. Even if Fang Yuan was targeted by fortune rivaling Heaven Gu and his luck became terrible, it could not have gotten to this extent. Giant Sons will shouted in an incredulous tone. It's over, everything is finished. Giant Sons will howled, if he could cry, his face would be filled with tears right now. Instantly, the large number of Giant Sons will dispersed and fell down from 88 True Yang building like sand. This was the self-collapse of a will. There was not even a trace of fighting spirit left, it could not endure such an impact. The heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities had not ended, but were transforming into this final tribulation. Formless hands. The remaining Giant Sons will curled up into a lump, exposing 88 True Yang building. Inside True Inheritance secluded domain, Fang Yuan and the others were still in the dark, not knowing anything that occurred outside. The chase was still continuing. Due to the backlash of heaven and earth chi, the loss of Gu worms on both sides had reached the hundreds. But they were still persisting firmly. Fang Yuan had almost no movement Gu left, but he had already found a way to resolve this predicament. He led the pursuers to make a large detour before suddenly changing direction and flying towards Tai Bai Yunsheng. Senior brother, quickly open your immortal aperture and let me in. I can evade these pursuers and smoothly advance to a Gu immortal there. Fang Yuan secretly transmitted his voice. This. Tai Bai Yunsheng could not help but hesitate. The immortal aperture was the foundation of a Gu immortal. If Fang Yuan was let in and he failed, the resulting destruction would have to be endured by Tai Bai Yunsheng. Senior brother, what are you hesitating for at such a crucial moment? Once I advance to a Gu immortal, we will have the strength to survive this danger. Don't worry, I have complete assurance in advancing successfully. Fang Yuan shouted. Chapter 630, Chaotic and Dangerous Situation. Tai Bai Yunsheng was already bound firmly on Fang Yuan's chariot, and thinking of the fixed immortal travel that was with Fang Yuan, he had no choice but to accept Fang Yuan's request. Fang Yuan was overjoyed and charged into Tai Bai Yunsheng's immortal aperture. Damn it! The pursuers paled at this sight. This scum is too crafty, actually hiding in Tai Bai Yunsheng's immortal aperture. We can't hunt him now. Yi Lui Sang helplessly shouted. Then, we shall slaughter an immortal. Kill Tai Bai Yunsheng. He Lu Lan's eyes glinted ominously, killing intent pervading from his body. The strength path giant phantom he had turned into, charged towards Tai Bai Yunsheng with overwhelming momentum, like a bear pouncing at its prey. Tai Bai Yunsheng was scared witless, quickly fleeing with the supreme true inheritance light lump. Don't forget that I am also a flying master. Tai Bai Yunsheng had learned from Fang Yuan and shouted loudly while flying away. The pursuer's momentum was involuntarily destroyed. Someone powerlessly cursed, F*CK, two flying masters appeared in this imperial court contest and both of them had to be these two. Only He Lu Lan was provoked by the remark, his battle intent soared to an unprecedented level. Looks like I have to use my full strength as well. His expression was solemn as he made a resolution and punched fiercely. The fist chi surged majestically like a mountain peak. Tai Bai Yunxing nimbly dodged it without receiving any injury. But the barrage of grand fist chi suddenly transformed into strength path giant phantoms. Tai Bai Yunsheng was caught unprepared and in a short moment was completely surrounded by these strength path giant phantoms. What bad luck! Tai Bai Yunsheng's face turned pale white. Who could have thought He Lu Lan's strength had actually reached such a powerful level? 16 strength path giant phantoms, this strength can truly slaughter an immortal. Yi Lui Sang and the others were greatly shocked at this scene. Huff huff huff. He Lu Lan gasped for breath, the strength path giant phantom on him had already dissipated. This move clearly used a lot of his energy and strength. Even great strength true martial physique of 10 extreme physiques could not endure its usage. His fat body flickered with a layer of faint black light, that was the power of Immortal Gu Dark Limit, helping him to suppress and conceal great strength true martial physique. What a close call, I almost broke the seal of Dark Limit Gu. He Lu Lan rejoiced inwardly, a vicious gaze flashing on his eyes as he looked at Tai Bai Yunsheng, your death is assured now. My grand plan of revenge will start from you, Tai Bai Yunsheng. However, a change occurred right at this moment. Giant light blue hands suddenly appeared in True Inheritance secluded domain. The dense giant light blue hands soon attracted everyone's gazes. What is that? What kind of thing? Whoosh! An ordinary True Inheritance that was flying like a meteor collided into a giant light blue hand. The giant light blue hand opened its palm and grabbed this True Inheritance, holding it so tightly the True Inheritance could not even budge. The giant light blue hand paused for a breath of time before flying away swiftly. Under everyone's gazes, it left behind a trail of gorgeous blue light while its speed kept on increasing. After it moved thousands of steps away, it suddenly disappeared without a trace, even the True Inheritance it was holding was gone. Everyone's pupils involuntarily shrunk at this sight. These giant hands are so terrifying, they easily subdue the True Inheritance. I know, this is definitely Ancestor Giant Sun's ability. Haven't you noticed these giant light blue hands are similar to the flying snow hands? Huh, Ancestor Giant Sun has made his move. It seems the heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity has already passed, these two scoundrels are finished now. Some people made guesses which were quickly approved by everyone. However, right when they were cheering, a miserable shriek spread to their ears. Everyone looked at the source of the voice and saw that a Gu master in the outer periphery was grabbed by the giant light blue hand. Shortly after, the giant hand seemed to have grabbed something, flying far away with a clenched fist. That Gu master let out a miserable howl, that hand seized all my Gu worms. What? There was a commotion. Soon, the second victim appeared. My vital Gu was actually seized, puff. He spurted a mouthful of blood. Vital Gu was closely related to the Gu master's life and when it was forcibly seized by the giant hand, the Gu master immediately suffered backlash. The hands fell down like rain, beginning to wantonly seize Gu worms. Run away. Everyone dispersed in confusion. Isn't this Ancestor Giant Sun's ability? Could it be that this is a heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity? Many cried out in shock. What kind of heavenly tribulation is this, it can actually seize Gu worms? Someone shouted in bewilderment. The importance of Gu worms to Gu masters was self-evident. Quick, store your Gu worms into your apertures. Someone reminded in panic. However, everyone soon discovered even after storing in the aperture, the Gu worms were still being seized. The giant light blue hands were formless. They did not inflict the slightest injuries and only captured Gu worms. Once the Gu worm was captured by them, the Gu worm would immediately lose connection with the Gu master. What kind of tribulation are these giant light blue hands? Can it seize even immortal Gu? Tai Bai Yun Sheng could not make out any details on these giant light blue hands and was very nervous from the scene unfolding in front of him. At this time, 3 giant hands moved towards him. He evaded in panic. Even as a flying Gu master, he was soon in danger, his face perspiring heavily. The giant hands were very fast and extremely nimble. The crucial point was they could sneak attack like flash bug Gu, making it very hard to defend against them. Even Tai Bai Yun Sheng was cutting out a sorry figure. There was no need to mention other Gu masters. There seems to be information of this in the tribe records. He Lu Lan frowned. He could not dodge in time and was grabbed by a 4-fingered giant hand. For a moment, he could not budge. The giant light blue hand seemingly had no substance, and like wind brushing past one's face, it caused no harm to He Lu Lan's body. However, He Lu Lan felt his head go dizzy, instantly losing connection with a rank 4 Gu. Oh no! He Lu Lan inwardly exclaimed. The Gu that was seized might only be rank 4, but it was very important. It was one of the necessary Gu worms to use his strength path killer move. Roar! He Lu Lan suddenly let out a beastly roar. Rank 5, Fixed Sound Gu. A formless sound wave rapidly chased after the 4-fingered giant hand and locked it in place like a formless iron chain. I don't care what all these hands are, I'll destroy them. He Lu Lan gave a loud shout to raise his spirits, and turned into Strength Path Giant Phantom once more. The giant grabbed the giant light blue hand with its house-sized fist, and clenched. The giant light blue hand flickered twice before shattering apart like glass. He Lu Lan immediately sensed that crucial Gu worm. The shattered giant light blue hand fell apart like ice melting into water. He Lu Lan smoothly grabbed the Gu worm and was just feeling joyous when 5 formless hands suddenly appeared behind him. His face turned pale instantly. He fiercely turned his body and delivered a horizontal strike with his arm. He used all his strength in this strike. Wind erupted, and sound waves burst out like thunder. But when the strike touched the formless hands, the giant arm directly passed through like they were image of the moon in the water. He Lu Lan was stupefied. The formless hands quickly moved and grabbed specific parts of the Strength Path Giant Phantom. He Lu Lan was paralyzed once more. Next moment, the Strength Path Giant Phantom collapsed with a loud sound. His killer move was broken. My Gu worms, puff. He Lu Lan spurted out large amounts of blood. His vital Gu was seized, which was the core Gu of his Strength Path killer move. Besides it, 4 other crucial Gu worms were also seized. What gave He Lu Lan the most heartache was false emotion. Fake Will Gu and Wooden Chicken Gu, 2 immortal Gu, were also seized. Stop right now. He Lu Lan exerted all his strength to chase the hands, the matter of Fang Yuan thrown out of his mind. The giant light blue hands moved everywhere, seizing Gu worms. The Gu masters fled and evaded in disorder. A rumble erupted in True Inheritance secluded domain. Threads of light shone down as the True Yang building began to crumble. No, I absolutely can't let 88 True Yang building perish. Formless hands cannot be attacked, but when they grab a Gu worm and clench their fist, they can be destroyed. As long as I can protect the several rank 8 core Gu worms, with enough time, I will be able to rebuild True Yang building. Outside the tower, the remnant giant suns were curled up in a ball and was accumulating its energy. The enormous Truyang building was like an old man with a foot in the grave, letting the formless hands fly in, grab the goo worms and fly away. The beautiful and grand Truyang building soon turned into a nibbled giant corn. Its surface was a mess, filled with holes. The formless hands continued to rain down endlessly. Truyang building's complete destruction was not far away. Inside Tai Bai Yunsheng's immortal aperture-blessed land, however, was a scene of tranquility. Fong Yuan waited for a while before carefully transferring his second vital Gu. All-out effort Gu had a beetle-like shape with an oval body and an arching carapace. The majestic horn on its head appeared dignified and powerful. It had 3 pairs of strong legs, and its entire body was brown which shone with a metallic luster. Fong Yuan obtained this Gu back in southern border. Later he refined it rank 4 which allowed him to casually strike out with beast strength phantoms. Go! Fong Yuan softly spoke. All-out effort Gu obeyed Fong Yuan's intent, charging towards the extremely compressed 3-colored chi lump. Boom! Fong Yuan's body shook intensely as lightning seemed to have burst in his mind. The chi lump exploded loudly, and like the process of creation after destruction, it gave birth to an immortal aperture. The sky in the immortal aperture was orange-yellow and a white mountain stood tall on the earth. Since the immortal aperture was newly born, the space inside was limited, but it soon rapidly expanded all around. Like a newborn baby, it demanded nutrition intensely. The immortal aperture's nourishment was the heaven and earth chi. Senior brother, let me out quick. Fong Yuan immediately sent his voice. You succeeded. Tai Bai Yunsheng was overjoyed before warning, you need to be careful when you come out, the situation now is quite dangerous. Fong Yuan's vision changed as he was let out of the immortal aperture by Tai Bai Yunsheng. The next moment, he appeared beside Tai Bai Yunsheng. This is Formless Hand. 500 years of experience was not for show. Fong Yuan immediately recognized the origin of the giant light blue hands and turned pale with fright. Feeling his aura, a 6-fingered formless hand suddenly appeared above Fong Yuan and grabbed.